What is up, everybody? Hope you are doing well. Welcome to episode 31 of the Sports Clichés podcast. I'm Jay. That's Craig right over there. Uh, Sports Clichés podcast, the group that has as much coaching experience as the current Indianapolis Colts head coach, Jeff Saturday. We know him, we love him. He's actually been doing some work for ESPN this season. Becomes a all of a sudden hire. We knew Frank Reich. It was only a matter of time sort of situation for that squad. How the Colts have been playing, but quite the surprise. And I don't know what your thoughts on it are, Craig. I have some opinions on it. I understand to some extent. I'll get into my take on it, but I don't know. I don't know if this kind of really caught my eye when I saw it, and it was very sudden too. It was Frank Reich is fired, and within maybe about 20 minutes, I saw the next post of Jeff Saturday is now the Indianapolis Colts head coach with no previous college or professional coaching experience in any regard. Not no position or anything like that, coach. He hasn't been retired obviously for too long. He's been doing the work on ESPN, and it's a lot of fun to see him on there. But yeah, very very shocking to me, to say the least. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with I think it was the right call to fire Frank Reich. This
Sure.
team has clearly kind of crumbled under him. Not necessarily entirely his fault.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he could have been prepared for the offensive line falling to absolute tatters.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not. I don't think firing Frank Reich was the wrong decision. The hire of Jeff Saturday, however, I feel like I am much closer to Joe Thomas's opinion of it than anything else, which I don't
Hmm.
know. Did you hear about that?
I did not actually. What
So,
Jeff say
Joe
about?
Thomas this morning, former Cleveland Browns offensive tackle, obviously one of the all-time great offensive linemen,
Absolutely.
was on a morning show. I don't remember which one, and I will read the exact quote because this isn't even like, ooh, that's kind of spicy. He goes scorched earth on Jeff Saturday and Jim Irsay.
Okay.
Uh, his quote is, "When you hire one of your drinking buddies to be the head coach of an NFL team, it's one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen in my entire life to the commitment, the lifestyle, and the experience it takes to be an NFL coach. Any coach, much less the head coach of the Indianapolis Football Colts. You've got to be kidding me. This is something that Jim Irsay and Jeff Saturday, who's not blameless for accepting the job, could have talked and decided that this was the best thing for the Indianapolis Colts at this juncture of the season." Which, yeah, he's right. Like, when you take a college coach and he moves up to the NFL, you see how difficult it is to head coach in the NFL. And I think you see it also a lot when NFL coaches drop down to the college level, how much trouble they have in recruiting and all of the extra stuff that goes in there. But just purely from a head coaching perspective, coaching a football game, that jump from college to NFL is fucking difficult. Never mind when you're coaching like some random high school team in Illinois, right? Like to go from that to fucking coaching the Indianapolis Colts, it's ridiculous. Now, could Jeff Saturday be a good coach? Sure.
Right.
He was obviously a very good center. Center, I think, is one of those positions. I think a lot of people in the NHL talk about the backup goalie position as being a position where it's like you are a second coach in a lot of ways, right? Because you're the one on the bench who watches the game a lot and you have the perspective of a goalie being behind the play. So there's a certain level of seeing the game that comes with being a backup goalie that leads to goaltenders, especially goaltenders who spent some time as a backup goaltender, being decent coaches, goaltending coaches, assistant coaches in the NHL. But even still, you're not going to take your backup goalie and make him the head coach tomorrow, right? There's so much that goes into coaching. Uh, to have never even been a coordinator, an offensive line coach, nothing. Straight into head coach, it's a joke. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it sets a interesting sort of precedent for this sort of thing because there's kind of a um, there's a thought kind of way in which this hire is supposed to go, in which it's somebody still like internal within the organization for an interim position, that sort of thing. I guess they kind of made the argument that he's like been a consultant in some regards to the team since he's been gone. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's only coached. He's coached high school apparently. Um, and I suppose head coach at for that at the very least. But yeah, this is so much of what I think the as much as it's feel good and it's a it's so interesting for the Colts because that AFC South in general, like they absolutely have a chance to still uh, be in that playoff picture. As bad as this team has been, and as you gotta feel like it's definitely a drop off from what you expected this squad to be. Um, there's still like some hope there. It's not necessarily a throwaway season at that point. We're still only 9 fucking weeks into this goddamn thing. It's like there's still there's still life there. Um, this is a feel good pick, I suppose, for a lot of like if you're talking about like there's gonna be a large section of Colts fans that probably like this pick just because they like Jeff Saturday. And I suppose that's fine. There's no like necessarily ill will. But like, yeah, it's very interesting when you do have uh Colts veterans like the name I saw brought up, Reggie Wayne. He's their current wide receivers coach right now, a legend as far as Colts fandom is concerned. A guy who has coaching experience and is coaching right now. I don't think anybody would have really batted an eye, perhaps, if you made Reggie Wayne the interim coach. That would have been fun too. I think it's just the fact that you really went off the board with this. And yeah, I find it interesting with Joe Thomas's quote there, the drinking buddy. I feel like that's almost the case. Like these guys are hanging out at the country club on the Friday, and yeah, Frank's out of here. Probably if this next game doesn't go well, we'll give you a call. And that's exactly what happened. By the time it's Tuesday the next week, they lose another game, and yeah, we're firing Frank. And within a half-hour time span of the
Yep.
announcement for that, you're announcing Jeff fucking Saturday as your head coach. There's a true air of unprofessionalism with the decision being made there by him. Um, I don't I don't think it's with the craziest of ill intent either. It's not like Jim Irsay has been one to. Uh, I mean, he's had his controversy, that sort of thing. He's also like I would say within recent ownership and that sort of thing of the team. Like it's not like he's been incredibly sketchy. It's kind of an interesting, more open person about ownership of an NFL team, but yeah, this is a clear misstep. It seems like, and I don't know. I don't know. It would be crazy if we're talking a couple of years from now, and yeah, like you said, maybe Jeff Saturday does become a good coach. But this was gone about in such the wrong way that it really sours it. I think
Yeah.
to most fans from the outside right off the bat. Um, just simple as that, basically.
And I mean, I'll just throw it out there. Your linebackers coach is Cato June, who has 12 years of experience as a coordinator across college football and the NFL. Why not give him a look? Right? There are guys on your coaching staff who have experience coaching and are former players from that great era of the Colts.
Right.
If you want to promote somebody from that era that you as Jim Irsay absolutely adore, Cato June was sitting right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. It does feel like the kind of thing where we all know Jim Irsay likes to have a couple. Him and
Right.
Jeff Saturday are there. They're having a couple, and he goes, "I'm firing Frank, man, and you're my head coach. You're my guy. I love you, Jeff. You're my guy." The only explanation I have for it.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's like one of those things. You don't even have to be necessarily like three sheets, that sort of thing. I think you'd forget it otherwise. It would be more of he's just I think the writing was on the wall, like
Yes.
as far as Frank Reich was concerned. So
Yeah, that I agree with. It was time for Frank Reich, and he's been there
so
for a couple of years now. So I
you're
mean,
yeah you're kind of just I think it's a very interesting way to go about it. I think if some more like time is kind of taken with this thing, maybe it's a little bit more reasonable. Not necessarily just Saturdays, the pick itself, but I think in general, like it won't seem like such a crazy ass decision, right? Like
yeah,
if you at least give it some time to breathe, you could at least like make the argument like, oh yeah, no, we, you know, I think for this team at this time, we need the energy, that sort of thing. We need a former player, and we need offensive line help. Like I don't know, you could make some silly ass argument there, but the fact that it was done so quickly after, and granted, behind the scenes, this decision might have been made, and it might have been a day or so
yeah.
apart. But even that's too little a time. I feel like
Oh
I
yeah,
think this needed time to like breathe. I think you kind of like soft bring Saturday in
yeah.
as the head coach, and then it becomes an official announcement like kind of later. It's just very funny how this all went down. It's it's what honestly, from the product they put on the field, it's probably the most fucking exciting thing that the Colts have had all season.
Yep.
They put on a fucking boring ass show on the field, so I guess they get a little excitement out of this. But I mean, yeah, it seems silly. It is silly. I think there's as far as like the Rooney Rule and much more deserved coaches, Brian Flores, that you need to be looking
Vito
at.
June.
Yeah, within the house right there. If you're looking for an instant,
If
even
you want a former player
you got a
who is well
33.
loved by his guys, who has coaching experience,
Yeah,
and would give you some good faith with the whole Rooney Rule thing, Cato June.
you even have a defensive coordinator that has like 33
I
years of
was gonna.
experience too. Like, good
So
God,
that was
like.
the thing I was gonna throw out there. Would it have been better if they had made Gus Bradley the interim head coach, brought in Jeff Saturday under him as some kind of an assistant, with the idea that at the end of the season, Jeff Saturday is going to take over for next year? It would have been a lot better.
Incredibly more palatable. And yeah, nobody would like they would be kind of but then they're like, okay, well, Jeff Saturday, if there's something there,
That's
um
just it, right?
it'd be way more accepted, of course. Of
I think
course.
people would have looked at that and gone, okay, so they really like Jeff Saturday. They think they have some potential there. They're going to get him under Gus Bradley, a veteran who's been a head coach before.
But
They're
this
going to
is
let him kind of learn how the week to week works and all that. And then he's going to transition in after Bradley.
but
That makes sense, at least.
as far as the X's and O's are concerned though, you got to expect like this is a team that just got rid of what was like the pseudo like kind of player caller ish offensive coordinator before Frank Reich. There was another motherfucker that
Marcus Brady.
he was gone the week before, right?
Yeah.
Then they get rid of Frank, who is
Who is
officially the
another guy, by the way, who a lot of people have always said deserves a look as a head coach.
right.
Like, there's a lot of people out there who really like Marcus Brady as a coach. He's not going to be out of job for long. Somebody's going to scoop them up pretty quick
So
as a coordinator, I'd imagine.
it's like you just kind
Shout
of
out Montreal Alouettes, by the way.
you just got rid of basically everything that your offense is kind of run on. I'm wondering how that play calling is going to go. Honestly, what the hell are they going to do on offense? Like this is going to be out of Madden playbook
Yeah.
basically. I gotta imagine for this squad. Like, um, I guess Jonathan Taylor's going to be coming off an injury. He's pretty healthy. He's not listed on the injury list this
Got
week.
him in my starting lineup this week.
I plug him
That's
in
what I'm
too in my money
thinking. We're
league.
running the ball
Absolutely.
50 times with Jonathan
What the hell are we
Taylor for
gonna
like.
do? Sam Ellinger still back there,
I
or
like
like
Ellinger. I like Ellinger.
what would
I'm
be
not gonna throw him under.
okay? So here's the thing, though. Given this whole changeover, what's the ability for this team to go back to Mac Ryan at this point? Because
It's zero.
but it's like a whole new regime, right? So
Still zero. I think you've burnt that bridge. The second you said this guy is done for the rest of the year,
but that
this
wasn't just Saturday at this
no,
point.
but Jim Irsay had a play in that, and Saturday's Irsay's boy. I think that bridge is too far gone.
I, hmm.
Kind of owner Jim Irsay is, very hands-on guy.
Right.
I think Matt Ryan's got to realize that Irsay had a call in that as well.
I would say, like, and take this for what it is, because you're talking about Jeff Saturday. This is a guy that's not incredibly far removed. He's probably, spoken with, hung out potentially with a guy like Matt Ryan. If this is such a buddy thing at this point, I wonder what kind of favoritism a
Maybe,
guy like
yeah.
Jeff Saturday has for this guy. And he's like, no, we're gonna throw Matt back in there. He's a good quarterback. I know him, and like that shenanigans happens. It wasn't Jeff's
Yeah.
decision, and I believe in him. And we're gonna run a style of offense that's gonna work for Matt. And like I don't know, the potential for this like it was already bad and it was starting to get there. This is completely derailed from that now. And with the landscape that the whole AFC South has, like even your best team in Tennessee is like still a little like not they're still a 5-3 team, that sort of thing. This thing isn't out of the realm. We're still like, we're basically halfway, just a little bit beyond that through a season right now. It is crazy to think that this whole situation happened with the Colts. They're still 3-5-1 team. Like, you put a few wins together out of nothing,
Yeah.
somehow, some way, all of a sudden you're right there in the conversation. It's crazy to think, but we agree. The only thing was kind of the guarantee is that Frank Reich needed to fucking go at that point.
Yeah,
it
no,
was done.
the Frank Reich era was done in Indianapolis. No doubt about that one. I don't know. I can't imagine Jeff Saturday being some kind of a offensive line whisperer who just fixes all the issues here, right? There's no. I just can't see it. I'm not gonna go into like, oh, he's gonna lose X games for this.
No.
And even if he comes in there and does well, I don't think it matters. I think at this point, you've kind of made a mess of this whole situation. And I think it's going to be tough for the players to get on board with it. As an Edmonton Oilers fan, got the shirt on and everything. I spent years watching the Oilers hire former players in every position imaginable, right? Craig McTavish is going to be our coach, and Kevin Lowe's going to be the GM, and we're going to get Buckberger in there, and we're going to get everybody who played with us in at executive roles, and they're all just going to trade jobs with each other, and it never worked because the players felt like all these old guys want them to play their style, want them to be them, right? And I worry with an offensive line that's struggling as much as it is, if Jeff Saturday doesn't just go in there and go, well, just do what I did, right? Just here's what I did when I was in this position, and here's what I would have done. And it's like, well, yeah, but your center is not Jeff Saturday, right? Like, if you had Jeff Saturday on that offensive line, it'd play better.
Yeah.
Right? So that is a thing. That's the reason why Wayne Gretzky never made a great coach. Right? Sometimes when you are a good player, you go in, especially when you don't have coaching experience before, you go into a place thinking like, just play like me, right? Just do this. That's what I did. And it's like, yeah, but you're not coaching people who are your caliber. That might be another thing to look out for. We'll see how quickly the players get on board or fall off board, because that could happen as well.
Right. Let's keep it going though. Yeah, definitely an interesting hire there. We'll see what happens in the future with that team, but yeah, definitely. I think shook up as far as the um, not a rudimentary hire. It made waves, and yeah, felt like a good thing to talk about right off the bat. We're gonna do something brutal to you though, dude, and I feel a little bit bad about this.
I
'Cause-
need to make a plea.
okay.
I need the floor here for a couple minutes.
Okay, well, you are already going to have the floor here because potentially in the next two games we were talking about, we're going to be back-to-back Atlanta games. But yes, the floor is yours.
Hello, Arthur Smith. What's up, bro? Um, you are at a crossroads. Falcons are still a playoff team, technically. Kind of. They're there. They're in the mix. Marcus Mariota, not working. The I love the man, not working here. There's a disconnect. You drafted Desmond Ritter. A lot of people like Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter plays a very similar style to Marcus Mariota. You wouldn't have to change your playbook or anything. You keep doing what you're doing. That's been somewhat successful. Just with a younger guy who might not throw the ball to the other team quite as much. Might I recommend next week you play the Bears? History shows you don't need a ton of offense to beat them. You just need to not make so many mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe time for a rookie QB to get his first shot and give up on this whole Mariota thing that's happening. Just gonna put that out there for you, Arthur. Sincerely, Craig. I love Marcus Mariota. The whole thing's done. It's done. The numbers yesterday, in particular,
Right.
in isolation. I told this to you because I was at a soccer game. I had a soccer game that night. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I watched the highlights.
Yeah.
The numbers in isolation: 19 of 31, 186, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Okay, obviously won a bit more yards. Mariota doesn't have the liveliest arm. We know that. It doesn't look bad until you see the misses. And until you see the interceptions that weren't, that really should have been.
Right. Yeah.
That stat line could easily be 19 of 30, 186, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot worse, doesn't it?
Well, it was both sides too. PJ
yeah.
Walker threw some terrible balls that Atlanta should have picked off. Really, this game came down to right there at the end. You still have Atlanta. They're within a score in this game. They have a pick that is right there at the 30-yard line, and homie drops it just completely. And it's a punt after that. It's with as little time as they had, it's like they could have done themselves so much of a favor. Being down 7, they absolutely had the chance there. It was just kind of heartbreaking. And then, just mistakes as far as the penalties were concerned, missed kicks were concerned, and then it was the misses from Mariota were bad ones. There were some drops, but there were some complete whiffs.
Also, I'll just throw it out there. Maybe starting Desmond Ritter will get him to throw the ball to Kyle fucking Pitts.
True.
Oh my god, it's annoying.
Yeah, he got there were times where it was like, all right, he got a ball, that sort of thing. 8 targets on the day. Only 2 catches out of those, and those weren't his fault. He actually was one that wasn't dropping the ball at all.
Yeah, I think he was credited with 1 drop in the game, and it was a kind of harsh one where he was the ball was way out front, and he's way reaching for it.
He's going across, precisely.
It was a bit of a harsh drop.
There was
Other than that, it was just overthrows and underthrows everywhere but where Kyle Pitts was. Essentially, was where the ball went.
There were some weird ones though. There was one where it was a tight end that's crossing, and he's doing like a deep in, so like a good like
Yeah,
10, 15 yard in,
yeah, it was Nicole Pruitt.
and he's just running it, and this ball just fucking sails like right there behind him. Like he didn't even look
Yeah,
toward the ball. It's a completion. Like it actually wasn't a bad throw. He just ran his route and just didn't even consider that he was being thrown to. It's like that just
and I
obviously
like Nicole Pruitt too,
it's
but
yeah.
that was a bad one.
There's not the great coordination. The other thing you gotta take away from this game, as far as it looked like for the Falcons, is that yeah, uh, Deontay Foreman got every bit of fucking like he was. It was a steady bleed out. Like it wasn't like death of a thousand cuts because some of them were pretty significant, but it was just like he was hitting the lanes there, and they got a lot of work. 31 rushes, 130, only a 4 yard average, but it felt every bit of like every rush was like that 4 yards though. It was some really really nice running that he was able to get, and yeah, Falcons just never pieced that together. The lack of touches to Cordero Patterson is going to be one that's going to be looked at for sure.
Yeah. Um. So there's something I want to throw out about Deontay Foreman because I love Deontay Foreman. Obviously, we've talked about this before with Deontay Foreman, former 49er, former Falcon. I no, he was never 49er, was he? He was only former Falcon though, Deontay
Yeah,
Foreman.
Falcon definitely.
Um, I love Deontay Foreman. There was a thing on Falcons Twitter after Deontay Foreman went 31 for 130, going like, "Oh, but man, the resurgence he's had the last few weeks has been really impressive." No, 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 no. On the year, Deontay Foreman has 91 touches for 426 yards. Now, when you consider the fact that in like the first 3 weeks he had 0 yards, that's not bad. Except unless you ignore the fact that that resurgence, 248 of those yards are the last 2 games he played against the Falcons. It's not
Right,
Deontay Foreman has magically become this great running back again. He's still Deontay Foreman. He's good. He's gonna get you some yards.
right.
But this Falcons defense can't stop anybody on the ground. And I mentioned the Bears next week. Fucking Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery, Justin Fields, they're going to have a field day against this defense. They might all get 100 yards rushing.
Yeah. It's it would be a tough one for them to take, and I guess that's in consideration of the game they had last week too. It's just been kind of back to back heartbreakers for them, right? Like I think
Yeah.
you go into this game obviously, and you're trying to get that bounce back off of the Chargers game, um,
Which,
one that you could have had. I mean, you had the
yeah,
lead fourth quarter. You give up a couple kind of latest field goals, and all of a sudden you're losing that game. Um, yeah, just unfortunate games that you're right there. Literally, you get those two instead of losses, and um, you're looking at a 6-win team if they somehow were able to pull that out. But it slipped away from them.
I know a lot of people were hard on the Charger or on the Falcons after that loss to the Chargers. Typical Falcons choking away a late lead, yada yada yada. I think a lot of people look at the position the Falcons are in right now and forget that this team was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the NFL,
Yep.
right? And then they lost AJ Terrell. That's massive for that secondary. Because again, it's just one of those teams that doesn't have a ton of talent everywhere, right? They got a few quite talented pieces that they're trying to string whatever they can together until they can really build this team up. Um, and unfortunately, what that means is when some of those talented pieces go down hurt, the whole thing falls apart, right? Losing AJ Terrell was always going to be a death blow on that defense, right? Because you just don't have the cornerback talent behind him. It's not like the 49ers, for example, where we were talking about their injury crisis earlier in the season. But then you get to bring in all of these incredibly talented back, like Charles Omena, who has to play more minutes. Oh no, right? The Falcons aren't in that situation. You lose AJ Terrell, you're putting in somebody who, on most other teams, doesn't even crack the 53, right? It's you're that far down on the talent pecking order, right? I'm not gonna beat up on the Falcons too much. 4-6 at this point, I would have ran with that if you had given me that. Especially 4-6 in an NFC South where nobody's above 500.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, I'd have ran with that at the start of the season. But I think it's time to cast aside the Marcus Mariota thing. Admit that you're bad, that you are not really competing this year. See what you have in Desmond Ritter. Because here's the thing, the worst case scenario of this season is you finish under 500. You don't win the division, but you win a few too many games to be in a good draft spot. Right? Because if you have to go in the next season with Marcus Mariota as your quarterback in this situation, that's a problem. I still stand by the fact that I've seen enough out of Mariota this year where in the right situation, he can do a job for you. This is not the right situation for him, though. Right? I think the Falcons are treading on a very dangerous spot that they got to be careful of. And I think the way you solve that is with Desmond Ritter. Either Desmond Ritter comes in and plays great, and all of a sudden you don't need to be in the contending for one of those quarterbacks because you feel like you have one in Desmond Ritter. Perfect. Desmond Ritter comes in and plays poorly, you do fall to one of those quarterbacks that we've talked about so much. You're golden. However, there is a scenario where you keep Marcus Mariota in. He still shows those flashes of the Marcus Mariota that we know is in there.
Yeah.
And you win just enough games to be bad, not enough games to be in the conversation of worst team in the league bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think for them, I don't know. Yeah, it's really like you still have something to play for in this season.
Yes.
And so a couple bad games in a row, definitely. You've seen a little bit of the glimpses of him playing good. I want to say, the Niners game.
Yep.
Absolutely, he played phenomenal in that one. That's a team that you will, if you happen to make it to the playoffs, could be a team you line up again against. All said and done. I'm not super into the idea of putting guys out there when like they're really not ready, and I kind of feel like Ritter's that. He's not quite ready really to start playing the NFL game. It's great to get a guy like that experience, but when you have something to play for, it's just like how much are you I think you're sacrificing a bit as far as your capability to be able to win games. And do you want to do that right now? So I lean toward the fact that it might end up coming to that as far as putting a guy like Ritter in, but I don't know what the proximity as far as time would be as far to that. Like, are we talking weeks down the line here? Are we talking like next week, next game if they don't get this done against the Bears sort of thing? It's a very interesting question that you have to kind of like you have to consider. Like if it's really bad against the Bears, a team that has a decent enough defense, that sort of thing, but really you should be beating. As much as Justin Fields is starting to get a little bit more of a groove into this offense and that sort of thing, they're starting to learn how to operate with the kid. This isn't a great football team by any means. This is a team that has 3 wins for a certain reason, and you feel like you should have more wins as the Falcons. So right now, yeah, if you have a bad one here against the Bears, it would be hard to argue that. But I don't know. you're still going to put him out there, Mariota, at this point against this Bears team. So I think it still kind of hangs in the balance a little bit. Basically, is my thought on it.
I get that. I look at the preseason Desmond Ritter had, and I know it's preseason, it doesn't tell you everything.
Right.
But of all the rookie QBs out there, he was by far the best. And you put that on top of how I don't want to say bad because, like I said, there are moments this season where Marcus Mariota's looked solid. It's just sparsed in with moments where he's looked sub NFL level, right? And I just wonder at this point. So, if you're looking long term, if Desmond Ritter is like a long term, uh, you know, project quarterback, kind of like Trey Lance was, then I still think there's a point where you've got to let him get some game snaps, right? I think Trey Lance benefited more than we'll know because of obviously what happened this season from those couple games he played last year, right? Being able to get in there, experience NFL game speed, experience it at that level, playing regular season games, even if it was just a couple, it gets you that mindset, right? I still think there is benefit to putting in Ritter and kind of letting him know, like, hey, listen, this isn't a thing where it's like if you don't play well, we're going to cut you or anything like that. But we feel like we have something here. We want to see what you can do out there, right? I don't think there's any harm in doing that at this point because, like I said, the Falcons are punching above their weight as far as their record's concerned. Most projections at the start of the season had them as bottom three with the Texans and uh, the Lions, and then the Panthers were also in that conversation. But a lot of people had the Panthers a little bit higher because of the Baker Mayfield thing.
Right.
Um, a lot of people had you in that category. You were supposed to be one of the really, really bad teams, right? That was supposed to be your thing. You are just a bad team right now. And in the NFC South, everybody's a bad team, so you've somehow bobbled your way into a playoff race. I don't think you changed the plan for that, right? And if the plan for this year was see what we have for next year, Desmond Ritter's got to get some snaps at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. It might just follow that. I don't know. I don't know. It's. I think the true fall off that we've seen from, the Tampa Bay's, uh, has thrown all this into a little bit more of a question. Someone's got to win that division, right?
Somebody's going to fumble their way into the playoffs,
Right.
right? Uh, Honestly, everybody's counting them out. I We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about. I'm about to jump into a different team. We'll talk about
Yeah.
it later.
Yeah, and then I mean, we don't really have to touch upon it. I think we touched
Yeah.
upon the Falcons enough. Yeah, Chargers last week. We'll just go into the next game of last week. Let's go down the line here. The Miami Dolphins able to handle business just barely on the road there. Escape with a 35-32 win against the Bears. A a world record. It was a world record, I suppose. The record for most rushing yards by a quarterback regular season game. Justin Fields in this one. Really nice. The 60-yarder or so I think he had in the third quarter there. Really some great running, pretty gritty. Like able to defend, push off defenders, make some good cuts, and yeah, it seems like this team's starting to find a little bit more identity under this guy. Um, Tua started to get a little bit more back into form himself. 302, three tutties on that one. They're now with the former 49er backfield of Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert back there after Chase Edmonds and everything is gone. And yeah, another fun game for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think the story at the end of this one is Chicago kind of robbed at the end, right?
Got
And
ref hard.
Yeah, and unfortunate considering how well I think this team clicked, and really, yeah, a game where not a lot of people would have put them right there in it. Um, they definitely had a chance to come out ahead in this game if they didn't get screwed like that.
Uh, I love Justin Fields. I didn't think I'd say that a few weeks ago, but I think they're really finding his niche by just letting him run the ball a little bit more. Because we were talking about this on Sunday after the games. We were in call talking about this. He has a live arm. Like his arm is solid. He's accurate with it. It has a little bit of pop when it needs it, but it's definitely an NFL caliber arm. You combine that with his rushing ability, and it throws defenses all over the place. They're finally starting to implement Cole Kmet a little bit more, which is going to only help Justin Fields out. As he's one of those big-bodied tight ends who's freaky athletic, great safety valve for him. Darnell Mooney starting to get involved. Chase Claypool slowly starting to work his way into the offense. Man, got to work on the fucking drops, but if he can get beyond that, I think the Bears might have a little something here. And we talk about the shitty NFC South. The Bears have a lot of games left against really shitty NFC North teams, except for the Vikings. They have an outside shot at this playoff spot here. They got 2 Lions games left, a Packers game. They're not dead in this. Obviously, I mentioned the Falcons as well.
Yeah, I mean it would take quite a bit. It doesn't like 3-6 shouldn't be a number that looks that good. But yeah, exactly. This is
NFC.
NFC. Yeah, it's gonna allow that. Some teams gotta take it at that point.
Your third
The
wild card spot right now is 4-4.
right, and I think that will it'll bump up a bit. But yeah, you're talking about 9 wins or so. I just wonder where you might see those wins from a team like this for Chicago. You might get those against, um, Chicago. It's like I feel like either or sort of thing. Absolutely, they could take games against Detroit. They could also easily just lose a game against Detroit. Like I don't have any confidence that it's like a solid pick. Can't really hammer it, It just
Yeah.
I don't have the confidence in this team to perform in and out. It's like what we got with this Panthers team, and we'll talk about their last week's game in a bit. This Panthers team, from the way they played last week, it's amazing we got anything close to an offense that had anything going for them, and they really didn't for a lot of this game. But PJ Walker literally had one more completion than he had interceptions before they just pulled his ass in the first half. There, they're like, all right, we just gotta go with Baker at this point. Hey, you just put Baker out there and just be like, all right, well, yeah, salvage this game for us. But like this
Fucking
Carolina
hell,
team
Baker
is just
played decent too.
like, yeah, what the hell is this? Like, it's such an up and down season. Obviously, it's gonna be like that. But
Yeah.
I think especially for um, you see with some of these NFC teams, especially these teams like these 3-4 win teams 9 weeks through the season. Yeah, they actually have the ability to beat some teams that have like 5-6 wins.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They could lose to a fucking anybody though. You could beat a good amount of teams. You could lose to absolutely anybody though. That's kind of the thing. The floor is as low as possible. It seems like with these squads, can't trust them. You can't even trust I honestly, as a Niners fan, I can't even truly trust this 4-4 Niners team. We have lost to some really bad teams this year, and it's kind of inexcusable. There's a reason why they're 4-4. It's because they've lost to the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons, and teams that they should have stomped. But like you leave the door open enough, and as much as everybody's pumped about it, it's like these are recent memories. We just lost these games
Yeah.
not too long ago. We kind of got smoked in the second half against the Kansas City Chiefs, although that was a close game in the first half. It just like all these things. You got to be. You can't be too comfortable, with any of these squads. So it's so yeah, I'm suspicious. Chicago has every ability to be the second best team in this NFC North by a decent amount. They have the ability to also lose these games against Green Bay, Detroit. Yeah.
The thing I think that makes me a little bit more bullish on Chicago than, say, Detroit or
Sure.
Green Bay or something like that is there's been a clear change,
There,
right, in the style of play.
there's a clear identity for that team at the
Yeah,
very fucking least, which
yeah,
is more than
and
these
that
guys
wasn't
can
there
say.
at the start of the
Right.
season when they were losing games 9-6 and 12-7 and all those stupid games. They didn't have that identity. They found something here that they like, that they're willing to just shove down people's throats. And I think you've seen that in the last 3 weeks. Even that blowout loss to the Cowboys, their offense looked decent. It was just that their defense couldn't do jack shit,
Right.
right? Um, and that Cowboys team is good, right? That's a good Cowboys team. And when your defense can't do anything, it doesn't matter what your offense is doing. They don't need to beat good teams to make the playoffs at this point, the way the NFC is. They just need to beat the bad to average teams that are on their schedule. I just think they can do it. I think this is the kind of team that you look at that schedule coming up, and yeah, they can beat all those bad to average teams the way that they're playing now, the way that their teams kind of evolved growing into the season. Maybe they unlock something in Chase Claypool. Maybe that adds another piece to this offense. Before you know it, that offense goes from being a real liability to all of a sudden something of a strength on this team. And now when you're looking at those Lions teams, those Packers teams, even to a point the Jets, who have been outstanding to start the season, but are still kind of weirdly inconsistent in their own way, um, you can get those teams, right? I don't know. I'm maybe it's just me looking at a team that's 3-6 and should be 4-5 based off of last week, and should probably be better than that even if they were playing like this all year. And I go, I think there's something there. Because let's face it, that game should have at least gone into overtime. I think we can both agree that pass interference at the end was the most blatant one I've seen all year, and somehow it wasn't called.
Right. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
bad. And at the very least, that puts you into field goal range. You got Cairo Santos back there. If you're in his range, he's pretty decent at times at making sure the ball goes through the sticks. Sometimes he can be a little bit inconsistent, but he's been solid for the Bears so far. So I don't know. I look at them a little bit differently than the other tier of teams they're in there with, mainly because I've seen the evolution from really bad team to, hey, this team's got a bit of an identity going now. I like what they're doing here. So yeah, I think that's maybe why I'm a little bit more bullish on the Bears as like a less of an anomaly and more of like a we are seeing steady progress team than say the Packers or Panthers or Lions or Cardinals.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, there's at least a little something there. And let's go right into that. Let's just transition into the next game. You brought up that Panthers team. We've already talked about them a decent amount. Only one thing to really bring up in this game, and that's Joe Daddy Mixon
Oh
coming
my
back to
God.
life.
He's
Mixon
alive.
he only scored 3 touchdowns coming into this game. Goes off for 5 in this one for Cincinnati. This game was over before halftime, 35-0 by the time they get in back to the locker room. And then yeah, so you get Baker Mayfield for some garbage stuff, but basically this game was already over at that point. Yeah, and that's the main thing. You talk about a team that you've had the unfortunate injury to Jamar Chase. Um, so you think you're going to be taking a little bit hit to the receiving. You still obviously, I think we're in agreement. We like guys like a T Higgins, a Tyler Boyd, even a Hayden Hurst to an extent. But yeah, it was very surprising. We like Joe Mixon. We like P Ryan. We weren't seeing it really from this squad as far as actually having a effective rushing attack. A lot of disappointing games from Joe Mixon. Yeah, finally comes alive in this one. 4 on the ground, 1 through the air. Yeah, pretty awesome to see. Definitely one of my favorite running backs to still watch when he's able to go off. And Bengals back on the winning side of things, 5-4 on the season. Starting to get back to the form. You know, usually it's the loser of the Super Bowl that kind of has that fall off the next year. Bengals who do a lot better than the Rams in that regard, I suppose, as far as our Super Bowl matchup into this next season here. Cincinnati's starting to figure it out, it seems like.
Yeah, they got to find a little bit of consistency
This
though,
is also
because
the Panthers, so you can take this with, yeah, they're going to stomp them probably, but yeah.
yeah, they had some fun with the NFC South with the Saints, Falcons, and Panthers wins. In between those games, they also did get their shit pushed in by the Browns.
Right. That was a
So
bad loss, yeah.
they do got to find consistency still. Now, they do have a bit of a schedule coming up where they can maybe build a little bit of traction. Steelers this week, that's a winnable game. Titans next week. We've talked about with the Titans. They're a very weird 5-3 team who look kind of all over the place. Chiefs are going to be tough, but then after that, Bengals, Bucks, Patriots. Of those 6 games, 5 of them are very winnable. And if you can pull that off, you find that level of consistency again, this Bengals team's right back in the chase for, we're talking about, being back in Super Bowl contention.
Yeah, I mean, I basically the Browns loss was pretty bad, and yeah, it brought a lot of questions to how this team was going to be going forward. I don't know. It's just kind of an example of how the season's gone for a lot of teams here. These really just, I think where the talent lies between the two squads like that, but any given Sunday sort of thing, and all of a sudden, I think you have some squads that just don't have the talent like that. They're able to pull out wins. It all comes down to, I think, also with the Bengals. You were coming onto that first game, I guess, being off of having a guy like Jamar Chase. I mean, their offensive line, they were just all out of sorts in general. Maybe just took an extra week for him, I suppose. But yeah, it's definitely it's good to see them going when you have a situation like that. It's kind of surprising that you weren't able to get Joe Mixon going. I have no idea what kind of offense you'll be able to consistently pull off with this team right now. It seems like if you did have that bad of a game and it wasn't that long ago against the Browns, I guess they did have that bye week in there. So yeah, maybe that bye really helped them out.
I thought they're on bye this week.
The Bengals, yes, Bengals are on bye this week. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder what this team. It's been very up and down. It's been maybe even playing down to certain opponents at times. But yeah, stomping the Panthers like this. I think what was funny about this one too is I think before this game, kind of feeling a little bit better about like PJ Walker and that sort of thing, just being like, all right, this guy might be able to actually do something. And then he didn't even make it out of the first half basically in this game.
Yeah.
So again, in trying to predict this stuff and trying to like really get a feel on some of these teams, you think you got it, and then all of a sudden all that shit's thrown out the window, and now. I mean, yeah, PJ Walker, all of a sudden Baker's coming in, he looks decent, but then you put PJ Walker in last night, they pick up a win against the Falcons. It's just like, it's really hard to even predict any of this crap.
Interesting circle of life thing in this game that I enjoyed. PJ Walker, with his 3 of 10 for 9 yards and 2 interception, put up a beautiful, perfect passer rating of 0. At the 0.00 passer rating. Do you know who the last player to have a 0.00 passer rating was?
Blaine Gabbert.
That is a solid answer.
Damn it! I thought I had that.
He has had one. He has had one. It was actually The quarterback who came in the second half of this game for the Bengals, Brandon Allen.
Oh wow. Yeah.
a
Okay.
little bit of circle of life moment there for Mr. Allen.
Damn. I thought I had that Blaine
Yeah, he
Gabbert
had
one.
a 0 in 2020, I believe, against the Ravens.
Although I should have predicted somebody that was in the game because it would have just been a dig at Blaine Gabbert, which I don't mind, but that would have been
I'm
funny
always
too.
up for a dig at Blaine Gabbert,
That would have been
who
funny.
is still in the NFL, guys.
Yeah. Um, let's keep it moving unless you had anything else you want to hit on pawn on that game that was
I will say,
came to
because we
mind.
probably won't talk about him this week. Um, Bengals bye week with Jamar Chase not on IR because they think he might be back sooner could be massive for them if they can get Jamar Chase back for that game against the Steelers. Be nice. Be nice.
Yeah, start to get a little bit of a separation from the bottom two in that division,
Yeah,
right?
stick
And
with the
really start
Ravens.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's go on to a another disappointing quarterback performance. We were talking about some of the shenanigans from our PJ Walker, and we brought up Blaine Gabbert. I have to admit, there's a little bit of I don't take incredible joy out of it, but there's something to be said when it feels like an off season is just like in complete shambles for a team, especially with the quarterback position, and then they kind of like piece it together and think that they're going to be fine. The Green Bay Packers only put up 9 points against the Detroit Lions this past weekend. Rodgers throws 3 INTs. One pick was like literally 10 yards behind the guy. It was horrendous. He does throw for 291, but he throws 3 picks. Um, and gets stopped by a Detroit Lions defense that is historically bad. Um, and a Detroit Lions team that is hobbled. You don't have DeAndre Swift really back at this point.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's just a bit player right now.
they just gave up Hawkinson to an interdivision rival. It's not looking good at all. This was as bad of a loss as the Packers could have taken. Like I would have said going into this game, and I think I probably did say this is exactly the kind of game that Green Bay needs. This is a game, even though it's on the road, like you should be able to get this one against Detroit. You'll get back. You'll be closer to 500. You're not really there with Minnesota, but in the NFC, yeah, you can start. This is a get right sort of game. To take a loss here is the worst fucking possible thing, though. It's the worst loss you could have taken. To lose to Detroit right now, as bad as that team has looked, uh, yeah, what the hell are you gonna do as Green Bay at this point?
They they did the thing again, Tab. Do you know who had the most rushing yards for the Green Bay Packers against the Detroit Lions?
Aaron Rodgers,
It was Aaron Rodgers. AJ Dillon
couple
and
scrambles.
Aaron Jones combined for 20 touches. Less than half of the throws you had Aaron Rodgers throw.
Yeah,
Stop doing the thing. They're both really good. Okay? Like both of them are really good. I know your offensive line sucks. But the way you help your offensive line is you run the ball a little bit more.
yeah, that's kind of
Like,
thought.
stop doing the thing. Let them run a little bit. The one game, the Packers decided, you know what? We're going to give the ball to Dillon and Jones a little bit more. You lost it. I get that. 30 rushes for the two, a combined 201 yards. It was the game last week. You figure, hey, you know what? Yeah, we lost. Good Bills team. You're going to lose sometime. That running game, though, found something there. Let's keep it. No, we're going to throw the ball 43 times there, and Rodgers is going to throw 3 picks. We're
Yeah.
going to lose to the Detroit Lions. This Packers team's cooked.
Yeah, at this point it feels like that, and like I discussed this I discussed this with my brother earlier this week, and we both kind of came to the same realization with this. And I've always I've always kind of had this inkling, this feeling as far as Rodgers was concerned. An absolutely talented quarterback. Um, his you know, from the beginning of his career, right off the beginning, from the beginning, as far as the NFL is concerned. Obviously, we all know the draft scenario, right? As
Yeah.
far as him falling. Interesting fact on this one. The story is, Niners take Alex Smith was with the number one pick that year. Everybody thought it was going to be Aaron Rodgers. He was a Cal player. He grew up a 49ers fan. Everything kind of coming full circle, that sort of thing. They go Alex Smith out of Utah instead. Part of in a very pivotal part of that draft team to pick Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers, one big Mike McCarthy back in the day on the Niners staff. Little do we know, all these years later, Big Mike is going to become the head coach of the Packers. And they do get a Super Bowl during that time. Way back in the long year of 2014, right? Is that right?
I think it might have even been earlier than that.
Earlier in that. Something like that. I have fucking no idea. It's a long time ago, basically. But the whole thought is this dude and these teams that actually were built around him were way too talented to only have the one Super Bowl.
2011.
Okay, so 3 years before. Um, I never really got the idea that ever he was ever over it as far as when he got, and that's great. The whole idea of the chip on your shoulders or thing that worked for a
Yeah.
lot of players, right? That's how dare they doubt me sort of thing. That's worked. I think for Rodgers though, I think it's the one thing, and I think it really stood out at the end of this game. And if you heard the press conference and the quotes after this game for Rodgers, it was along the lines of, yeah, not to take any credit away from them, but let me take credit immediately away from them and say that the Lions aren't any good. We just made mistakes. That was basically it. Uh, and it was interesting in kind of talking about this with my brother, in that the lack of direct accountability from Rodgers and the desire to just kind of move on sort of thing. This has kind of been more or less how he's operated his entire career. It's He made some incredibly bad decisions against a bad football team, granted, but a football team that was ready for him. There's a reason they held this Packers team to 9, and it wasn't all because Rodgers gave it to him. He gave it to him in an extent, but also the Lions outplayed him. They outplayed him for sure, and it's the lack of a personal accountability for that loss. Um, I think it's a small part of the greater career that is Aaron Rodgers, and it's a great example of why this dude hasn't won more Super Bowls. Basically, this guy should have had 2 or 3 in his career. It should be no doubter. This is a back-to-back MVP we're talking about. But that's all well and good when you talk about the regular season. This motherfucker cannot get it done during the postseason. And now that it's really come around to where he's having a bad regular season, I don't know if he got it in him, honestly. I don't know. I could see if it's looking like this for him. Like he was talking about going to another team or whatever, and this offseason, it took a bit for them and upper management to get a line on stuff, but I don't know. I can see Rodgers just being done with it, honestly, and it might be the best thing for him at this point for both
Yeah, I
sides.
agree. Um, Not necessarily with everything he said in there. I don't agree with a lot of what you said in there, to be honest with you. I think what we're seeing out of Aaron Rodgers this year is just father time catching up with him, to be honest with you. He is like I know we're used to Tom Brady and freakishly playing till he's 45.
No,
He is 38 and
sure.
has had his fair share of injuries. Um,
Some of these are
you know,
like this is just bad decision making in general. Like someone who's had this much experience shouldn't be making some of these really piss poor decisions, especially when you're talking about like balls out to the flat that are getting picked off by defensive linemen. Like
so
it's just a bad look.
so I've seen it a lot with older athletes. I'm sure you've seen it too, where they try to make plays that they could make when they were younger,
Sure.
they can't really make anymore, and it ends up looking really terrible. I think there's been a lot more of that with Rodgers this season than anything else, and now he's getting frustrated. And when you're frustrated, not thinking clearly, you're going to make dumb decisions. Um, I still think a lot of Aaron Rodgers not having more Super Bowls is Mike McCarthy is inept as a head coach and always has been. And I think he's proven that more often than not with Dallas as well. So, um,
I mean, can't
he,
can't say they're doing
he
bad this year, right?
he did try a quarterback sneak with no time left on the clock in the playoffs last year that cost them the game.
Right. I mean, I suppose that's it, right? It was interesting because in watching that game, let me tell you this. So watching that game and the way that Dallas was moving the ball at the end of the game, as a Niners fan, they were moving it at will against them, and I would agree that the fact like to where he scrambled to, right? He got to about like the 20, I think, by the time he slid down ish. He got him within like the 15-20. I feel from memory. It might be a little further away, but I feel it's like right there.
It was about the 30-yard
The
line
30,
where he
okay.
sliced down.
Yeah, that's a little longer. But basically the way they were moving the ball, it's like that was within the realm. Like they were getting balls deep on the Niners. If the things are cleared up a little bit, I mean, they still have a play right there, basically. I do agree. Sliding, time off the clock, all that, it's not great. But the way that the operation happened, him sliding, that ball gets right to the ref. Ref puts the ball down. They get a snap off. They get a spike, if I'm being completely honest. The Cowboys should have had one last play in the bank on that drive. They should have. They the way it happened is Dak tried to just place it down, and the center tried to follow that and just place it himself. But the ref has
Yes.
to touch it first. The ref has to
Yes.
decide where that ball is down. So he moves it. Then okay, they have to
Then
reset, and then the snap happens. If they just give it right to the ref and the ref places it down and they just set off that, they have just enough time to spike that ball basically and get one more play in.
did you see the way the Niners lined up on that play though? With literally every defender on the sideline and then like a line at their own
Oh,
15. You
yeah.
can get the same amount on that play running a quick slant in and it'll take 5, 6 less seconds.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, so the whole thing is that like I don't think that's as egregiously bad of a call as perhaps. Not saying, and I trust me, I'm not defending Mike McCarthy as some godlike coach or anything like that. His time management skills have been abysmal, to say the least. That has cost Dallas multiple times throughout his his spree in coaching there. I will say though, there's no doubt that those Packers teams should have won more Super Bowls.
Oh, absolutely.
And I will say, yeah, there's definitely Big Mike is to blame for some of that. I think Aaron Rodgers is also to blame for some of that. As good as that dude is, there is a fundamental fall off as far as that team's performance once it gets to the playoffs, for whatever reason.
Is
And I think the head coach has to do with it, of course. Can't not. And I think it has to do with the quarterback play as well. The conversation, and we're starting to get a little off topic here.
Yeah.
But the same kind of conversation, and I always thought it's kind of a fun question. You know, you take in the vacuum of the way that the Patriots, for as long as that dynasty ran, do you give more, the classic fucking football, talk show question? Do you give more credit to Belichick or to Brady as far as that dynasty is concerned? And I'm like, well, it's the perfect chemistry. It's like it doesn't work completely that way, one without the other. Is Tom Brady a talented enough quarterback to, with another coach, he couldn't have won some Super Bowls? Absolutely. Is Bill Belichick shown that he's a talented enough head coach to be able to put together a team through, some real shenanigans put together, like wide receiver cast and that sort of thing, to be able to get a worthy team out there without a guy like Tom Brady? I think so. I think it's the combination of the two of those that creates the crazy dynasty that we saw for so many years that we'll probably never see again. It's the perfect chemistry. And I think that's just it. You always have to take the quarterback and the running of that offense most of the time with the head coach. And I think McCarthy and Rodgers have to be. I think a lot of blame has been put on McCarthy for not getting those Super Bowls done. I think equal blame is right there with Rodgers for not getting more Super Bowls for those Packers teams.
with I think you should go back and remember kind of how the Packers have lost those playoff games, because a lot of it's not on Aaron Rodgers at all. Not knowing how to recover an onside kick has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
Giving up 45 points to the San Francisco 49ers doesn't have a lot to do with Aaron Rodgers, especially when he scored 38. Um, Having 7 drops from your wide receiver core against the Giants, also not on Aaron Rodgers, right? Like a lot of the losses throughout their history, the one where he completes the Hail Mary against the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals get the ball to start overtime and just march down the field and win.
Right.
Again, there's nothing Rodgers can do on that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I look at a lot of their playoff losses
I
and go, there's not really much Rodgers can do differently to win those games.
I mean, there's absolutely things that can be done. I mean, a lot of those are. It's like singular moments, singular plays, or perhaps like a drive that happens in like overtime, that sort of thing. Outside of the Niners just running amok on them that one NFC divisional game, I believe it was.
Every game I
Just,
mentioned in there, the Packers scored at least 25 points. That should be enough to win you a playoff game. At that point, there's not many playoff games where there's not many teams who win a lot of championships who consistently give up 30, 35 points in playoff games.
I would say it's the way that the Packers have won a lot of games the regular season has been with this explosive offense, and you don't really question the way in which the defense plays. But then once that offense goes away like that in the playoffs, all of a sudden you start losing those games because you aren't putting up 30 plus. You're putting up 20 something.
I agree, but again, I don't think those kind of playoff showings are on Rodgers, right? I think that's more on poor team construction and poor coaching. Not being able to recover an onside kick, that is purely a coaching thing. That is, you don't have the right guys on the field to play special teams.
Oh yeah, and their special teams woes obviously have been known. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of that in there too, right? there's a lot of games where their special teams were like bad missed field goals, getting punts blocked, getting all like years of inept special teams from the Packers as well,
Right.
right? I just feel like maybe you're giving a little bit too much of it to Aaron Rodgers here. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any of the blame. I do think he deserves a little bit less of the blame than just it's him and McCarthy are the reasons. In that order, it's like but Rodgers, McCarthy are the reasons that the Packers haven't won Super Bowls. It's like meh.
Well,
Rodgers might be a part of it, but he's a significantly lower part of it.
well, there's two guys that are always going to take the brunt of it for the most part, unless it's like the GM. It's going to be the head coach and the quarterback.
Yeah,
And I
I
would
don't
say,
disagree that he will receive that criticism. I just don't necessarily think it's warranted.
yeah. Um, I would say for him, it's a significant fall off in the production that he delivers during the regular season to when the playoffs happen.
I feel like every quarterback has that though. His playoff numbers are fantastic. Like fantastic over his career in the playoffs. 43 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. Something like 7,000 yards, 8,000. Like it's fantastic playoff numbers. I I wonder how much of Rod like cuz you're not the only person who says things like this. I wonder how much of it is just because Rodgers is somewhat of an unlikable person. Because I don't feel like Dan Marino takes the same guff, despite having not won a Super Bowl at all.
No, I mean, I would say the same thing about Dan. I mean, absolutely. For the quarterbacks that don't get it done when it matters the most, then yeah, your stats are all it's nice, but it didn't mean anything. Like I have, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, if you were to tell me, uh, playoff run right now, and you're just talking about right now. I need to have this team. I need to win. Some playoff games, that sort of thing. I mean, I even take a look at a guy like Eli Manning over a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Give me Eli, dude.
Only if only if he's playing Tom Brady.
Give me Eli. Give me Eli.
Any year that the Giants did not play the Patriots in the playoffs, Eli played like shit.
There is there is a clutch factor I think that always needs to be taken into consideration with some of these guys, and I think with a team game like football is, I think there's a lot to be said about how you are uh, how your locker room gels as a whole. And granted, you're not always playing, like you brought up. There's a you know, Rodgers isn't out there on defense to be able to stop the Niners from running 200 something plus whatever, or to stop the some of the misfortunate aspects that have happened to those teams, because yes, he has put up good passing numbers in those regards. I'm always interested though in the idea of the chemistry as a team as a whole. I think with a guy like a Tom Brady, as the numbers aren't as impressive, right? As far as
Yeah,
like in and out, season to season, touchdowns, yards, that sort of thing. It's not lighting up the boards like an Aaron Rodgers. It never has. There's there's something about how that guy is able to um, be a complete pain in the ass on the sidelines, right? Like we've
yeah.
seen Brady on the sidelines. He's an annoying little shit who just like yelling at his offensive lineman and shit like that. But it seems like to perspective, and it's just us seeing whatever the fuck is put
Yep.
out there as far as media is concerned. His teams have typically really rallied behind him. And I don't know if you could ever really say that about the Aaron Rodgers led teams, too. As far as really rallying behind that guy, it's a weird, and there's no scale of
Yeah.
being like he's a terrible leader. He says this that. It's all fucking media bullshit or whatever. We only know as much we know, but it's
Yeah.
just interesting in that you got a
No.
guy like that, and he could do so much more with so much less during that
Yeah.
same era, basically.
Um. One last question on this because
Sure,
we've kind of gone on to
way
a
too
topic
long,
that I don't think we were planning on going on.
way too long.
You brought up the playoff run idea.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning?
Hmm.
'Cause I think
Great
they're in
question.
similar. I think they're in similar boats, right? Yes, Peyton Manning gets the second one in Denver, but if you
Yeah.
remember in that playoff run, he was horrendous that whole playoff run, and
Yeah,
they
it
won
was
it
that
almost
defense.
exclusively on defense.
Defense.
So that really, if you look at the bulk of their career, they each won one Super Bowl on a team that didn't quite have the same amount of weapons and firepower as everybody else. Now, mind you, that Colts team did have a little bit more than this Packers team ever had. With when you look at Harrison and Reggie Wayne and the parade
Dwight,
of running
right?
backs that came through there,
Dwight Freeney back then, right?
Dwight Freeney,
Yeah.
Cato, the aforementioned Cato June.
That's right. That's right. Fan. Yeah, Peyton for me, but like it's a similar vein. It's like it's a funny conversation because it's not like it's we're talking about bad quarterbacks or anything like that.
We're talking about all-time great
We're
quarterbacks.
talking about great quarterbacks here, but it's a there's a level to this thing. I feel like there's always the ability to you don't have to play exactly like you play in the regular season. You're
Yeah,
you're only playing the best teams when you're in the playoffs. So naturally there's going to be better defenses that you're probably
yeah, of
facing
course.
off against, that sort of thing. It's going to be more shootouts potentially because you're facing better offenses. But I want to say there's been, and I'd have to take a look at the stats. How many times has this Packers offense, this team in general, been seen as the number one seed and not gotten it done? It felt like countless times, as opposed to some of these Brady teams that literally come up from the ground up and they've made those things happen. It's like it's just it's an incredible as bad as Dan Marino, I'd say, as far as like
Yeah,
a guy that you clearly regard as one of the best at their positions, but just couldn't fucking get it done when it mattered the most.
yeah,
Simple as that.
yeah. I I'm not even gonna look at Brady in this conversation because I look at Brady and
I mean,
Jordan as the guys with the two best clutch genes in sports history,
I I'm
right?
I'm a Niner fan, and I have to be honest about it. I'm like, yeah, probably fucking better than Montana at this point. As
Yeah,
much as I am,
yeah,
damn it.
no.
Yeah,
I just find the Peyton Manning conversation interesting because I
very
think
interesting.
Peyton
Yeah,
Manning is in a very similar boat as Rodgers in that they both played on smaller market teams, didn't have the money to go out and buy everybody. So obviously there were years that the talent wasn't quite as strong as everybody else, and they were pretty much relying solely on their quarterback to carry them through.
yeah,
Playoff records aren't necessarily the greatest for either one of them, despite the fact that the playoff stats are both phenomenal. Um, like I said, Manning gets the extra Super Bowl, but I think we can all agree you could have put anybody back there, that quarterback position, with that way that defense was going, they would have won. His numbers in that Super Bowl game were, I think he was like 13 of 23 for 130 yards and a pick, no touchdowns. He was bad, right? Like he was throwing up some Mariota levels of bad and won a Super Bowl with it, right? That's how good that defense was. Um, so that to me is one that I think is a very interesting conversation. But again, we're parsing between all-time great quarterbacks. So, um, yeah, I think the drop off. I think this is Rodgers last year. I really do.
Hmm.
I can't imagine he comes back
I
to play
that's
another year like this.
that's kind of my feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, let's keep it going. We went way too long on that. We'll just hit through these. There's a couple standout things for these games coming up.
Yeah.
Um, New England Patriots hosting the Indianapolis Colts last week. Uh,
Oof.
as far as I'm concerned, this was another shutout against the Colts. They put up
Yeah.
three, but who really cares about that when that's the only
Yeah.
three you really put up? This game was a watch from the get go. 9 sacks for New England, and yeah, Sam Ellinger unfortunately not looking too comfortable back there. Only saving grace is you are getting. It seems like a healthy Jonathan Taylor coming back into their next game here. Listed or not listed on the injury list coming off of practice here for the Colts. So might have a little bit more going for you, but yeah, I don't know. You have anything that you want to touch on? This was a pretty thorough washing here
Yeah, nothing that
from
I
New
haven't
England.
really said before. That Colts offensive line is the worst in football, and I only like they're they might not be the worst talent-wise, but with the amount of money that you're paying, that is the highest paid offensive line in the NFL. Nobody's putting more of their salary cap into the offensive line than the Indianapolis Colts, and it is dog shit.
Yeah,
That is why, for me, I would argue worse than the NFL. Like, there are some offensive lines out there that are bad, but they don't, like, the Falcons' offensive line is bad, but they're putting no money into it. They're playing like four guys on rookie contracts. Of course they're bad. Um, Patriots side of things, I still have no faith in Mac Jones. Uh, 20 of 30 for 147 and a touchdown is not going to win you many games unless you're playing a team that has no offensive line. Um, they need to find big plays out of this offense because I like Ramondre Stevenson as well. But if your passing offense is a non-factor, you cannot get your running offense going.
yeah,
And there's only really one guy in the league right now who can do that. We'll talk about him in a bit. But yeah, they got to figure out their passing offense. And whether it's Mac Jones, whether it's Bailey Zappi, whether it's something we don't know, they got to figure out something with it because they are still in a playoff race. And if you want to be in that playoff race, offense needs to get figured out.
yeah. I think for the Colts, like this will help obviously. Jonathan Taylor. I'm interested in the kind of scheming they even have with a Saturday. Like I feel like it'll go back to basics, and maybe
Ask Madden. Ask Madden.
that'll be like enough to get them by at least early in games. Like I think that's what's going to dictate it too. This team, if they're not able to find success early in games, um, good fucking luck as you get late in the games. I when you're talking about a whole offensive regime that's having you turn over like this,
Yeah.
you might be able to script out some stuff and you have some ideas for the personnel that you have. But as the game goes deeper and perhaps there's some recognition of the stuff that you're doing and you don't have those scripted plays, um, you just need a well-formed offense to keep that going. And that's anything but what the Colts have. They're the worst offense in the league for a reason right now. This team's scoring not even 15 points a game, I believe, if I was taking a look correctly. Um, I think if they have the inclination to like really start getting back to it with a Jonathan Taylor, if you could find something out of what's his name, Deion Jackson, is it?
Deion Jackson, yeah.
Because you kind of really like you set yourself up for that. Obviously, with I still not entirely sure why you're getting rid of Naheem Hines. I think he was someone who was great for this team as a secondary option, but that's that's there and gone now for this squad. So you're having to lean on that. Uh, and yeah, we brought it up earlier, or I brought up earlier, as far as, is there a thought you might be able to actually still salvage this, and is Matt Ryan a part of it? Because you're paying a whole shitload of money right now for him to sit on the bench for you. So I wonder if there's a lack of offensive production and they're not even able to get out of the scripted plays. How soon are you going back to that guy under this, Jeff Saturday led team now? Um, be interesting. Be interesting for this Indianapolis squad. There are, it's like the weird in turmoil, like in a really bad position, have all this change, but are outside of, maybe the very top of the division immediately, but like still within range of even a Tennessee. Um, AFC South. It's kind of crazy. So definitely interesting there.
Yeah.
Um, let's keep moving into the next one. The New York Jets with a very big surprise, hosting that Buffalo Bills squad. Pretty big deficit on the odds too, 10.5 on these odds, but able to get the win. This was unfortunate. I was watching this game. I did see the unfortunate throw, classic hit to the helmet, that sort of thing for Josh Allen. You hope that he's going to be doing all right, because this team really is, as much as it obviously is going to hurt for any team to lose their starting quarterback for the most part, I think this team really, really needs Josh Allen taking the snaps for him.
No
Um,
faith in Case Keenum?
no, not in this. Like, Case Keenum for the Commanders? Yeah, you could probably do all right. Case Keenum for the Buffalo Bills, what the fuck are they going to do? Case Keenum cannot run the offense that Josh Allen
No.
runs. So what are you going to do?
No.
Are you going to start handing the ball off now all of a sudden? You don't run that offense. You haven't run that offense. Your quarterback is almost always your leading rusher. You going to run Case Keenum? Oh, poor
That'd
guy.
be fun.
Poor
That'd be
bastard.
fun. He
But
doesn't have Josh Allen speed.
but I will say, I believe this was our only pick that we differed on last week. I did have the Jets.
Yeah, I did
Oh,
Bills.
baby. Woo! That's a good pick right there. 10.5 underdog, too. Got that one. They ended up taking the win, though. Obviously, this was way. This is a way different game than I would have expected, as far as Buffalo is concerned. But this is the exact way that New York needed the game to go to be able to get the win. Basically, I thought New York would keep it close enough to beat that 10.5 point spread. That was basically my thought
Yeah.
going behind it. So that's why I had picked them. But I did not think they would keep this Buffalo team down to 17 points. And there were points where it was, Josh Allen throwing balls up, and well enough done as far as the Jets were concerned, especially on that pass rush. They really didn't make it easy for Allen to get some of these throws off.
Yeah. And oof, Allen looked bad even before the elbow injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Sauce Gardner is the best rookie cornerback I have seen in a while. Uh, almost the first play of the game, they run a zone coverage play, right? Which is immediately Sauce's weakness. It was a horrible call. Just
Right.
let him island somebody, right? But they run complete zones, and there's a video out there, and I remember seeing it and everybody going off on it, of Diggs just blowing right past Sauce
He does.
because Sauce
Yeah.
is in zone, right? Sauce isn't covering.
Yeah.
There, he's in zone, and everybody's like, "Ah, Diggs, Cook, and Gardner gonna be a big day." That's like the last time anybody even saw field behind Sauce Gardner because the Jets were like, okay, just put Sauce Gardner on whoever the hell we want, and they're not going to
Right.
get anything. Sauce Gardner spent most of the day mashed up with Gabe Davis because they to be fair, they haven't done it much this year, but they did shield him a little bit from Diggs. I think they recognized going one on one, man to man against Diggs wasn't necessarily the best play with Diggs' speed. Gabe Davis in this game, 2 catches for 33 yards.
Yeah.
Like, he's unbelievable. He just shuts dudes down. He is exactly what Darrelle Revis was in his prime. Whereas I'm gonna pick one of their receivers, and I'm gonna put sauce on him. That receiver's doing nothing. Everybody else can do their own. That guy gets nothing. It's incredible. And as he gets older, more experienced, he's only gonna get better. But man, if you have that guy at cornerback, it just opens up the rest of the defense so cleanly. And this is a defense me and you have both talked about before is having a lot more than I think people realize. You look at guys like Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley, you look at a guy like Quan Alexander is fucking awesome. Quinnen Williams, obviously. There's just so many pieces there that when you have that guy in the secondary, that's a tough defense to play.
Yeah.
And Zach Wilson playing fine,
Yeah.
great,
Just enough.
but fine.
Just enough.
And fine is better than what he's been. Um, you gotta imagine James Robinson's gonna start to see a little bit more of the ball soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact. Obviously, it's the they have a guy like Michael Carter who they're able
Yeah,
to rely on a little bit more as a veteran presence. But yeah, absolutely, that's why you got James Robinson. He's gonna start getting that bulk load.
yeah.
He got 13 opposed to 12 touches as far as rushing was concerned in this game. I see that going a little bit further. It's gonna be Robinson in the high teens, Carter in the
Yeah.
low. Um, that'll be pretty likely. But yeah, you got an interesting collaboration of the rushing game being able to piece itself together after losing, um,
Brees Hall.
yeah, Brees Hall, but a receiving core that is going to operate off of you got the rookie and Garrett Wilson. You already had we actually talked last week on him. The Elijah Moore. You got the unfortunate. I believe I want to say he's injured right now. Is Corey Davis injured right now? From what I remember.
Yeah, I think so.
So unfortunate there, but you have pieces. We love Uzama here. A team that's going to try to do that 50-50 split, have a great defense to go along with it. And yeah, I don't have any reason to believe that the 6-3 that this team's putting up right now is a mirage or kind of fake at any point. I don't have any reason to doubt that this squad is going to be one of your wild card teams likely going into these playoffs. And yeah, and honestly, a scary team who really these defensive strong teams who wants to face them going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
These are the times. I mean, I think we just had a half-hour long conversation on Aaron Rodgers and his failures with offense, despite not all being failures in offense.
Yeah.
Great numbers in some of those games, obviously. But I feel like if there's a time for offense not to have it on point and you'd be able to steal some games with some good defense, it's the playoffs. Playoffs wins, defense wins championships sort of thing. And I love what Bob Sala has been able to bring to this team within a couple quick years. Good to see.
And it's so funny too, because like their bulk statistics don't even necessarily speak to it, right? Like their points for are 196, by far the lowest in the division. Their points against are 176, the third highest in the division, right? But there's so much more to it than that, right? It's those bulk stats. Like, there's a reason why analytics have gained favor because you can only gain so much out of those bulk stats, and they really don't tell you all of the story. You say the Jets as a wild card team. I ain't counting them out of winning this division.
Oh, of course,
I
yeah, yeah.
think I think the Bills have shown some cracks.
That's kind of hedging
Um,
my bet sort of thing. Like, you don't have to say they're division winner right now. Yeah, they're in the playoffs. But yeah, absolutely.
I'll throw it out there. I think the Jets will win the AFC East. I think there's a major issue with the Bills right now, and that is that their defense gives up a little bit too much for their offense to have off days, and they've had a couple more than you expect them to have recently. Um, God forbid this Josh Allen thing lasts any more than a couple weeks. Um,
Right.
the Bills are going to have some dogfight games down the stretch,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, this week, freaking tough one against the Vikings. But beyond that, you have 2 games left against the Patriots, both of which that Patriots team's going to be in the playoff race. The Dolphins are going to be fighting you for that spot in the top of the division. Jets are going to be there. We talked about the Bears. If they are that team who's kind of found their way to win a few games, that could be a team in the playoff race. Bengals could be a team that's fighting for their playoff lives. You got some dogfight games in there. And if you can't figure out kind of what's happening with this team right now of just being middling everywhere, the Jets are the kind of team that wins a ton of games by just not doing stupid things. And if they found out a way to get Zach Wilson to stop doing stupid things, they're going to win a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they'll run the game plan around that.
Yeah.
As far as it's not going to all be on him. And yeah, I think in general, you have great pieces around him. Uh, this is a great situation for Wilson to be able to build under. I feel. I think you still need to obviously do work on. You can only help that offensive line out probably with some additions, but
And they've been solid.
yeah,
Not outstanding, but solid.
yeah.
Um,
Sometimes it's just
yeah.
you just gotta have to be able to react to a blitz and that sort of thing a little bit better. But I really love you bringing James Robinson in to this team. Um, I love the move just because we talked about it last week.
Yeah.
It is kind of putting the mark that you're going for it
Yep.
this season at the very least. So
And
I think you rally behind that as a team.
and yeah, it's an offense that needs a big pop back. Somebody who has the potential to break off that 20, 30 yard run at any point in time. I don't think Michael Carter's that. Brees Hall was obviously that. Uh, James Robinson has shown in the past he can be that guy too. So I think that also he just fits in well with the game plan. I don't know. I like if you ask me which of the 2 New York teams I buy into more right now, I think it's the Jets. It's only just. I like a lot of what the Giants are doing. I just think the Jets have that superstar piece on defense that just changes games on defense with Sauce Gardner. I really believe that. And I think that's the kind of thing in the NFL that there's honestly not a like we talked about quarterbacks and how there's not 32 starting level quarterbacks in the NFL. There's not 32 game-changing superstar defensive players in the NFL. The Jets have one.
Yeah, I would say so. I think they have the benefit of being able to with scheme and having good enough players around it, that sort of thing. You've
Yeah.
you've developed a very unique situation when you talk about Sauce Gardner. And
Yeah.
if you talk about teams in the AFC, I mean, more to your point as far as being able to like win division and being a front runner, there are 5 teams with 6 wins in the AFC. Jets are one of them.
Yep.
So right there, exactly. So very very impressive from them. Um, One team that also has been very impressive, I think, definitely over what I usually measure them for, but in this NFC, looking like an absolute front runner here. Um, the Minnesota Vikings going into Washington, being able to just handle business. They had to come back in this one in the fourth quarter, get the win 20-17, but go to 7-1 on the season against the Commanders here. Not a great game from the likes of maybe a Dalvin Cook, what you're hoping for out of the squad, but Kirk being able to get just enough done. Justin Jefferson and new addition T.J. Hawkinson looking all right out there for them. Um, and yeah, just a this is an unfortunate one. This is a game that Washington could have had. This would have been a big win for this squad. In an NFC East that's already just absolutely cutthroat, they would have potentially been a fourth plus 500 team if they had picked
Yeah.
up this win. Don't get it though, and unfortunately fall to 4-5. But yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about Minnesota and Washington on this one?
Um, you know, I don't hold this one too much against Washington. This was always going to be a bit of a tough matchup for them. This Vikings team does a lot of things that Washington just can't match up well against, right? They tried their best. They held them off for as long as they could, right? Heineke again, I thought was solid for the most part. Not spectacular, but Vikings defense has been tough to be spectacular on.
Right.
He was solid. Um, man, Detroit. Remember how many times we yelled at you to throw the ball to T.J. Hawkinson? Minnesota didn't even have him for a full week of practice, and he went 9 for 70. Maybe could have used that guy. Throwing it out there.
Yeah.
He's so good. I don't get how you look at that guy and go,
Right.
yeah, good red zone piece. We'll keep him down there though. No. Yeah, he's big, but he's a freak athlete, man. Get him the ball in space. He'll break a couple tackles. He'll run on you. He can do it. He's that good. I expect him to only get better with the Vikings as he actually, gets a full week to practice with the team.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, what an accent to Justin Jefferson, by the way. You got Justin Jefferson, who's a guy who can just break off 100 yards on you whenever he feels like by just going long and catching the ball. And then you add a bruiser in the middle like T.J. Hawkinson, where if you want to try to double Jefferson and try to counteract that speed, fine. Somebody's going to have to try to tackle T.J. Hawkinson on their own then. Good luck. That's not even counting guys like Thielen. Dalvin Cook is still amazing. I know he had a kind of an off game, but that Washington defense has been pretty good at shutting down running backs when they dig in. Um, yeah, the Vikings are real. The Vikings are one of maybe four teams in the NFL, maybe five, that I truly believe are very good teams.
Yeah, I lean into them being a very good team. It does ring a little concerning because we know how dominant and good this team looks when Dalvin Cook's going. As much as this is a pretty, you know, I would say better than you would think sort of defense that you're getting from Washington here. Not, you know, not a completely knock your socks off defense either. And the fact that he was so limited in this game was a little bit of concerning. But yeah, absolutely. You're talking about this offense is gonna be able to operate. I mean, you brought up Jefferson, you brought up Hawkinson. Let's not forget, Adam Thielen. Always potential to break off something for there. I think he had like a 30 something plus. If I take a look at the stat there, but yeah, I think it's for his long, right? Something like
Yeah, it
that.
was
Yeah, 36 long. Yeah, there you go.
36. Yeah.
So like always the potential there. Um, Dalvin Cook, I don't expect to be averaging 2.8 a game,
No,
that sort of thing, of
no.
course. But it's just like against this team, I would have figured they would have probably ran over them as far as the skill gap is concerned. They only get this game by 3 points at the very end. They didn't look great throughout this game. That being said, a lot of teams haven't looked too spectacular through and through on games. The fact that Minnesota was still able to pull this one off, uh, very impressive. And yeah, as far as the NFC is concerned, um, I don't see any reason that this would be a team that you wouldn't love to see. Obviously, in the playoffs, they're going to be clearly one of your ones with some good home field advantage, if not outright home field advantage. We'll see how the Eagles do by the end of it, and of course those other NFC East teams. But yeah, in an NFC North that was for the taking, it seems like Minnesota's ready to take it. This is this is a good time for them to be as good as they are right now. It seems,
Yep.
given the lack of competition they seem to have in the rest of the division.
Nobody even close to them.
Yeah.
Nobody in the same stratosphere of good as them. The
And
closest is the Chicago Bears.
this brings up an interesting thing when you're talking about divisions and the fact that Minnesota's going to be playing some of these weaker NFC North teams versus the Eagles, who's going to have to still play games against the NFC East that has been doing fantastic. At the end of the day, I don't know. Consistency, the way they're playing, that sort of thing. Like Eagles haven't been completely, absolutely dominant in all their games either. I could easily see Minnesota having a better record at the end of the day and actually being able to take a number one seed in this conference.
I would honestly bet on the Vikings ending up being the number one seed
Wow,
over the Eagles
favored,
because I think the Cowboys are just such a better team than they've shown to start the year,
sure,
and they're 6-2, right?
yeah,
Um, I think the Giants are a tough out for anybody to ask, and I think what we've seen out of Washington in the last few weeks
scary.
tells you what kind of a team they are. Like we're talking about Dalvin Cook here. Let's not forget we're only a few weeks removed from them holding Derrick Henry like a 3.3 average, right? Like Derrick Henry couldn't even run over this defense, right? This is a team that defense is hard to
Great
play
point.
against. They muddy games. They don't make it easy on you, right? Um, I think that Eagles team's going to drop a couple.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, they're
undefeated
not
wasn't gonna happen. Yeah, right.
they're not going crazy. Yeah, but I think they're gonna drop like a couple. Like I
Yeah,
think we end up seeing them maybe with 3-4 losses on the year.
yeah.
Um, right. Whereas I could easily see the Vikings 15-2. Right. Like
Hmm.
you look at what they have down the stretch. It's not overly difficult. The toughest games in there probably being the Jets and Giants, right? Who are, though, as we mentioned, both good teams and tough outs. They definitely win at least one of those, I would guess. Right? So it's not the hard. Oh, and they have the Bills this week, but I'll explain why I don't think that might be as tough of a game later. Um, I I don't know. I could see them easily ending the season 15-2, and I just don't think the Eagles' schedule accommodates for that kind of a record.
I think so. Um, let's keep it going. And you just brought up a team that might be going 15-2. Let's go to a team that might be 2-15 by the end of it. The Las Vegas Raiders going into Jacksonville
They suck.
and dropping another one, 20-27. Were they up 17? Yeah, 17-0 in this game. I was watching this game. I
17-0.
couldn't quite
Uh,
remember. I was watching this game. I had it up on the side screen anyways. Um, yeah, a Raiders team that looked like they were. It wasn't like firing on all cylinders. They were doing all right. They put together a couple touchdowns, a field goal there, a couple, a few good scoring drives, and it was it was amazing how quickly that slipped away from the squad. They could not. At the end of the day, like the lack of offensive it just seemed like Derek Carr was lost as he dropped back and he'd have like maybe a check and then it wouldn't be there and there's nothing else and he's just like and then it just goes up somewhere. It was just a really disoriented offense. It felt like from the Raiders as I was watching.
So, I have an interesting theory on the Raiders offense right now. I think the Raiders receiving core has given up on their coach. I I think Josh McDaniels is way too reliant on Devontae Adams. He's great, and I get that. There is talented receivers across the board there. Hunter Renfrow, there's no excuse for him getting 3 targets in a game. He is way too good for that, right? You look at guys like Foster Moreau, you look at guys like Mac Hollins, even, right? These are guys who can do a job for you, and it feels like every play it's drawn up that the primary route is Devontae Adams, and I think there is a growing sense of frustration because I noticed it too. There were plays where Carr looks back, looking for Devontae Adams. The second Devontae's covered and he looks for somebody else, everybody's stopped. No, nobody's really running through their routes. Nobody, right?
Yeah.
That to me screams of frustration from the rest of the wide receivers. And again, when you have a coach who's so utterly inept like Josh McDaniels, it's only a matter of time before the players begin to get frustrated with it.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what's starting to happen here. I'm with you. I have no reason to believe the Raiders may not very well just lose out. They couldn't even beat the Jaguars.
Yeah. I think for this one too, it's like it's unfortunate at this point. It looks like they're still going to be down Darren Waller.
Yeah.
He now like re-entered the IR? I can't remember exactly what happened with him, but he's been on the IR. Might be re-entering it, something of that nature.
Yeah, he's back on the IR now.
Hunter Renfro just going on the IR. That's another one. And so yeah, it's like even if you
Not that
want
they
to
were
go
using Hunter Renfro anyways. So.
precisely, he completely fell off from what he had last year. Yeah, this team's gonna now just be really devoid of anybody except Devontae, who you're gonna be mostly targeting. Yeah, I imagine Foster Moreau will get a decent amount of looks, but nothing crazy. And yeah, at the end of the day, you're just not gonna be able to do quite enough on that offensive end. Josh Jacobs, it looked like by end of the day, the numbers don't look too terrible. In watching that game, it was a struggle to watch. Like
Yep.
every time they were handing the ball off to him, it was just he was just running through the mud immediately. Like it was just completely getting stuffed. So I'm surprised that he even came close to averaging 4 yards. But I know he had some good runs in there as well.
He's out there running for money right now. Right? He's out there running for money. And somebody's going to pay him, and they're going to get a damn good running back out of it. I don't think it's going to be the Raiders because they're too stupid to realize that the issues with Josh Jacobs are nothing to do with Josh Jacobs. That offensive line just, like the receivers, right? It's hit a point where it's become kind of toxic in that locker room. I think it's easy to see. I don't need to be in the locker room to see it. You can see it when they're on the field. Half efforts by everybody, right? It just we've joked about how bad Josh McDaniels has been all year. Enough's enough, right? Like this isn't his first stint. I can forgive Nate Hackett in Denver. Never been a head coach before. That shit's hard. You have to learn how to do it. Also, it looks like your quarterback might be completely cooked. That doesn't help any either. Um, Josh McDaniels, this is the same thing that happened in Denver. he was supposedly some great quarterback guru, and he goes over there with all this talent. They have so much talent. There's talent in Denver, and they just give up on him because he's useless as a head coach. Like the stories that have come out about him are shocking. It's I don't know. I don't know how as the Raiders you can look at this and go, "Oh, we should at least keep him to the end of the season." No, cut it off now, right? You gotta nip this in the bud because what you're gonna end up doing is gonna end up with a bunch of players who get into really bad habits because they're playing under a head coach who they just can't be bothered with.
Yeah, yeah. It's bad. I would say, I kind of put the question out there. I put it on our ticker below for the stream. And, who's the next coach that's on the line, going to be out? It's really got to be. It's got to be
Ought to
Josh
be Josh
McDaniels.
McDaniels.
There's actually no way it can't be. So it's not really even a question. I just put it out there. Just
Yeah.
figured that we're gonna bring this up because of this terrible loss. This is a game they had. It's 17-0. 17-0 they were up. They were looking great, and before the first half even ends, you could kind of tell like, oh, okay, Jacksonville's coming back on them. And then yeah, it was. They only win by a touchdown. Jacksonville does, but the dominance was evident from about like halfway through the second quarter in. Um, yeah, we shall see. I would say we got the next one coming up right here. This is the other coach, right? We've brought up good old Cliff
Little
Kingsbury.
Cliff.
Um, Seattle going into Arizona and doing some work. I was able to check out this game beginning to end. And this is the one thing I observed because and you brought this up. I am notorious Seahawks hater. I hate anybody in the NFC West, honestly, but
Oh yeah.
Seahawks specifically. Um, no secret that Seattle was the obstacle to overcome in those late 20 teen years and that sort of thing, kind of mid to late. A lot of unfortunate playoff runs ended due to the Seahawks team. But this is one thing I will say about him, and I will give him some credit for this. I I'm still suspicious about how this team could play by the end of it, and the defense still not entirely sure. But I will say this: they put themselves in a great position as far as their offense is concerned to be successful. They don't really take downs off, from what I notice. Every play, first down, second down, it could be first and 15, it could be second 10. They are getting chunk yards to really make it manageable. And they give themselves as best an opportunity to be able to convert third downs or just get first downs in general, basically. That I see from a lot, the good the good teams, basically. This is what you kind of have to do. There are teams that really stretch the field, obviously, with like big plays, that sort of thing. Seattle is able to just put themselves in situations like second and thirds and shit like that all the time, to where like now I have a second and short. Okay, yeah, you could pick up a first down with a nice little run play, and you have a guy like Kenneth Walker who you start to see
Oh
the
yeah.
potential
K9's
there.
out there, man.
But that play also has all the potential to get you a nice little 15-yard corner route to Noah Fant or
Yep.
something like that, or DK Metcalf, or
Tyler Lockett.
exactly. So it's just like you have to. The Seattle teams right now on the offensive side making you play multiple angles. Now I think if they get behind in drives, like a lot of teams, nobody really plays good behind the sticks necessarily. I think Seattle is one that you have to fundamentally do that to really really disrupt the ability.
Yeah.
Because we've seen when they do have that, they literally get shut out in games.
Oh yeah.
They've had really bad offensive games, but they've been really clicking lately, and they showed it every bit. Every time I was looking over at this game, they were just driving the ball consistently on Arizona, and it didn't even 10 points. This could have been a 20-point game easily. It was pretty sound win by Seattle.
Yeah, Arizona puts up a touchdown late in the third, I think midway through the fourth too. When Seattle just was still doing their thing, right? Like it never looked in doubt. Um, Even when Arizona took the lead early, it felt kind of on shaky ground, right? Like it was like, okay, Seattle's moving the ball at will on them. Only going to be a matter of time before they've punched a few of these in, and they kept punching them in and punching them in and punching them in, and Arizona stayed in this game, but it felt pretty one sided. Um, K9, man, Kenneth Walker is very good at what he does. I said it when the injury came up. I said that, Kenneth Walker is going to benefit from this more than anyone realizes because he loves being the lead back. He loves being the guy who gets 30, 40 touches a game. This one he only got 26 on the ground, but I think he got another 3 through the air. If you put him in that third, like you run him like you run Derrick Henry, like you run Jonathan Taylor last season where you just keep feeding him the ball. You just put it in his hands, let him do his thing. He's going to have a few runs where it doesn't come off, but then he's going to break off a 20-yarder on you. And he's not a nobody in the passing game either. I think having a guy who can just take the bulk of the plays and get you net yardage every time and you can feel confident in it is such a big thing for this team too. Geno Smith has obviously been spectacular this year, but it still helps keep Geno in a situation that's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, you mentioned like they don't like playing behind schedule, but I think what we're finding more of this year is a lot of the pretty good teams are teams who aren't necessarily chock full of talent, but just play smart, right? The
Sure.
Jets aren't full of the most talent, but they play smart on
Yeah.
offense. The Giants, we've said it all season. That offense isn't gonna beat you by themselves, but they're gonna let you beat yourselves. And they're not gonna do it to you. The Seahawks are very similar in that, with a little bit more boom potential, I think, because of K9 and because of how good Geno Smith has been. I mean, I said it last week. I said it the week before last week. I stand by it. This Seahawks team is real. This is a good football team. They're gonna win more games going down the stretch. I do I I'm not gonna call them to win the division because I still think talent wise the 49ers are just better than them. But they're gonna be right there. They're not a team that's gonna go away, and yeah, I think what you saw here was a team who is a have versus a team who is a have not. And at the start of the season, you would have picked it in the opposite way that it is.
Right. Yeah. I think coming into this, Seattle was clearly the fourth, basically,
Yeah.
as far as the division was concerned. But yeah, I think for Seattle, it is a you have the ability right now to where you can run this offense in this way. Like you
Oh yeah.
you found a guy like it's I would never like be like, oh, it's a great thing that somebody got injured or anything like that, but you've brought this up a couple weeks before, and uh just the thought of the archetype of a running
Yeah.
back that gets better as they get more carries, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Shooter shoot sort of thing, right? In basketball, uh, certain shooters, if you only have them putting up 5, 6 shots a game, they're not going to do so well. But if you're having the confidence in that, these guys get hot. And I guess you kind of have that same element in a guy like Kenneth Walker or those kind of running backs, right? To where if you're willing to put the ball in their hands, they will continue to produce for you. If Seattle's willing to stick to that. It's very interesting, the juxtaposition on this, though, as far as Seattle's concerned. Granted, it's not like a crazy disparity, but the Seattle team is actually 28th in time of possession. They're 28 minutes, 49 seconds. Granted, that's only a minute and 11 seconds separated from being halfway there. But actually not a great time of possession team,
Yeah.
as much as I feel like they operate on the wavelength of having a lot of time possession. That being said, yeah, Geno Smith playing above expectations for damn sure.
Yeah.
There was reason for that too. It's not like everybody was sleeping on Geno Smith. Geno Smith also wasn't put in great situations.
No.
He was thrust into a Jets team that was horrendous. He was thrust into the Geno. He played for
The Giants. He was bad with the Giants too.
Oh, I guess yeah, that was a short stint. Yeah, absolutely.
And then he was a backup with the Chargers after that, I think, and before going to Seattle.
Yeah. Um, you have interesting things. They're on defense. They're opportunistic.
Yeah.
Overall, though, there's a lot of give there. Teams could
Oh yes.
drive on them, but it only takes like the one sack. And if you're able to do kind of the opposite to them, for them, it's all about staying ahead of schedule and that sort of thing, and sticking to a running game, giving yourself very manageable third downs. For them, it's all about getting that sack early in a set of downs, to where you put them behind schedule all of a sudden. Now it's a second and long sort of situation. Their sacks, they're fifth the best in sacks this season. And I think that goes toward the way that they've been able to win games, is that all of a sudden they're able to stop momentum. And on the other side, they're able to just kind of continuously tick you down. And it feels a little bit helpless in that sort of, because you have success and then it gets completely shut down. And there's something about having just a consistent success like that throughout a game that Seattle's been able to do. So all the credit to them. I haven't been on them as far as actually being a good team. I'm still a little wary of things like their defense, but they get it done. They get it done in a lot of aspects. So
I also think their defense has shown a lot of improvement over the season. You look at the last 4 or 5 weeks compared to where they were at the start of the season. It's a significantly better defense. You look at from Cardinals game number 1, where they gave up 9 points, 23 against that Chargers team. That's pretty decent. 13 against the Giants last week, and then 21 this week, right? Like it's gotten better. Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder if if that defense can hold at that level. Maybe the Seahawks team's ceiling is a little bit higher than even I might have given them credit for. I don't know. We'll see. I still can't see past the talent disparity between them and San Francisco.
yeah,
But they have a 2-game advantage here. We'll see.
we'll see.
You definitely want to win the division, right? Going in as a wild card, probably not going to be. Although, wild card out of that division's probably friggin' playing the winner of the NFC South anyways, so.
Yeah, and let's go right to that, actually. This is a perfect transition into that. We'll keep it in the NFC West for one of these squads. The LA Rams going into Tampa Bay, potential winner of the NFC South now. And Tampa Bay ends up getting it right at the end, 16-13. This one, this speaks to so much. It was as bad a game this was, and as low scoring as it was. The Rams absolutely have this. If they don't go 3 and out immediately, they have it. If they get one first down, they have it. They don't. They have to punt it back. Tampa Bay gets one more shot at it, and for about 99% of the game, Tampa Bay looked terrible on offense. Tom Brady able to drive them down, score a touchdown right at the goddamn end. And Tampa Bay steals one, takes the top of the division now in the NFC South, and the Rams look, yeah, it looks every bit as busted as their offensive line is basically.
Yeah, both these teams are just bad. Uh, I want to go into a big long rant about it, but
Nah,
it's just not really much to say. The Rams probably should have won. They gave Brady back the ball. He's still got that clutch gene in him, regardless of how not great he is anymore. Right? He still gets the ball with that much time left. He knows what to do with it. Um, I will say, if you're really trying to break Tom Brady, making him throw 58 times a game is certainly a way to do it.
right.
Um, but yeah, I don't it was a hard game to watch
It
between
was a hard game to watch. I'm glad this was the second game I watched. I was already like
yeah,
getting a good fill with that Arizona Cardinal. The Cardinal Seahawks, even though it wasn't close, like it was still interesting to watch that one. This was the game we watched after, and it was like Jesus Christ, Tom Brady almost threw 60 fucking passes. Are you kidding me?
it
And
was
it's
bad.
this bad offensive performance. He should have. He shouldn't have. Like, yeah. The fact stands. This comes out as a win for the Bucks. They shouldn't have
No.
even had the opportunity. This game should have been over. Easy. It should have been a 13 to fucking uh
Uh,
13 to 9, right?
9,
Basically
yeah,
is what it
13 to
was.
9.
Yeah, 13
Yeah.
9. This should have been a 13-9 game. The it's amazing how uh as much as this Rams team has spent on this squad in particular for the season before. I had a feeling it would kind of have some fall off. It was just kind of inevitable. You had,
Yeah.
I guess your marquee name obviously is still like the OBJ who's still in free agency or whatever, but that's not even that big a deal. But I figured there was a little bit of depth there, even though you lose an Andrew Whitworth, that sort of thing. Like, this team's not going to completely fall off, right? But, like, yeah, you have three injuries to your interior defensive line, essentially, and it's not even close. Like, this is one of your worst teams right now in the NFC, um, for sure, as far as the Rams are concerned. And Tampa Bay still only barely beat them. So that goes to show how bad Tampa Bay is right now. It's it's hard to think that either one of these teams has what it takes to really get into the playoffs, but the Rams are in so much worse a position. Like how are the Rams going to make the climb to getting into, the division race or the wild card? I just don't see it. Tampa Bay actually still has obviously they're first in the division now, and because they're in the AFC South or NFC South, yeah, it's actually realistic to see this team now somehow making the playoffs. But then as you brought up, this is a team that's gonna probably have to face the best wild card team, which is going to be like a Seattle Seahawks or Niners or God, it's somebody out
Cowboys,
of the fucking East. Like,
Eagles.
good luck.
Yeah,
Like, it's crazy to think that you can now have, even a Giants, like, that
Giants.
just seems so much more of a dominant squad than this fucking Bucks team. It's just crazy to think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not whoever comes out of the South, they're not going to enjoy their time in the playoffs.
They'll have a
It's
home
going to
game.
be
They got
it's
a
going to
home
be
game, baby.
yeah, that home crowd's going to really enjoy what they see out of that
No, they
game.
won't. But the money will come in, and that's
Money,
all
yeah.
that ownership's going to care about, right?
That's true. True. I don't know. We've talked too much about this game. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Um, Wind up with a final two here, and this one, we definitely hit upon this a little bit. I was uh, delightfully surprised by this one. Tennessee going into Kansas City, taking it to overtime, but Kansas City able to hold off, get the win, 20-17. They go to 6-2 on the season. Tennessee to 5-3. Uh, I had a lot of belief. I thought Tennessee was going to take this one, but Kansas City just doing Kansas City things, sticking around,
Yeah.
and you go for all of like 20, 30 minutes almost without anybody scoring, and it's just like, okay, it's only a matter of time until the Chiefs are able to put together touchdown, 2-point conversion, and yeah,
And then overtime. Yeah. And of all the players, man, you wouldn't have put the money on McCole Hardman. Or yeah, it was McCole Hardman, right? Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's just the Chiefs' offense. They have weapons everywhere. Um, you know what? Everybody's going to look at Malik Willis's passing numbers in this game and go, oosh. And it was oosh passing the ball. That running game with him running a little bit of read option with Derrick Henry is a fascinating little wrinkle to throw in
sure.
because the Chiefs defense was struggling with the read option. Uh they were able to get Derrick Henry roughly the same amount of yards he gets on like half the carries. Because fun fact, it's a lot harder to stop Derrick Henry when you have to account for a fast guy who could be keeping the ball and running on the outside. It's an interesting little wrinkle. That's not me saying, oh, I got to keep Malik Willis in there. Of course not. He's not ready. The arm's not there yet. Um, I just thought it was an interesting little wrinkle. I thought it showed an option of what this team could look like if you got a running quarterback in there who maybe has a slightly more advanced arm than Malik Willis. Because I've made it clear, I don't think Ryan Tannehill's very good. I think you need a better quarterback. I'm not saying it's Malik Willis, but potentially somebody of the mold.
Yeah, I mean, you're just probably not getting you're not gonna get anybody anytime soon, basically for the Tennessee Titans. So yeah, you kind of have to just make it happen with Tannehill, which is what
Yeah,
they've been doing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, uh, I do like the uh the dynamic aspect they're able to bring with a guy like Malik Willis to give you a little bit different looks with Derrick Henry, which is if you want that to be your offense, which clearly, no reason to not believe that and go with that if you're the Tennessee Titans. You know, being able to give some different looks to that absolutely is it's only going to benefit you. Obviously, on the other side of the ball, Mahomes 68 attempts. I guess that's two less than the record. I think 70 attempts is the record for pass attempts in a game. So pretty outstanding in that regard. I mean, the Chiefs. This is a uh, West Coast offense through and through. Andy Reid just kind of sticking to his roots, and you'd hope for a little bit more offensive explosiveness out of this team, but yeah, this was really nicely handled. I would say as far as those you know taking that loss but coming away with something positive, that sort of thing. I guess you could have to kind of think that way if you're the Titans. You're able to keep it close with this Kansas City team. You don't close it out for the win, but on the road, I think there's a lot of potential there. I think if you have a Ryan Tannehill in there, you probably honestly win this game. You probably have a little bit more late production as far as this offense is concerned. You probably do a little bit better than 17 points, and that's enough. The way that your defense was playing. So, um, as much as nice to get the win for Kansas City, I think it's also a uh, you're not so hurt on this loss,
Yeah,
especially because you're the Titans in the AFC South. You can take a loss and hopefully you stay ahead of the Colts.
fine. You're
Right.
fine. Yeah.
Um, and let's end out the week here, as we've already been going plenty of time on this last week of games. But we can touch real quickly. Baltimore Ravens going into New Orleans and just kind of skunking the Saints there, 23 or 27-13. Read those numbers backwards there, but I mean the only thing I would take away from this one, um, Baltimore did a great job of making Andy Dalton look very, very frustrated in the pocket. Nothing significant or great about the Ravens passing offense, but uh, it was amazing to see how they looked still in charge of this game throughout. It wasn't really any kind of worry, I would say, for the Ravens throughout the game here.
Yeah, Ravens defense is very good. Um, I, Andy Dalton in primetime. The only player
Did
in
bring it
the
up.
world
Yep.
who makes Kirk Cousins look like Tom Brady on primetime
Right.
is Andy Dalton, right? Like he's bad when the lights are on bright. Some guys don't handle it well. Andy Dalton's one of them. Use Taysom Hill more, you cowards.
And there you go. I think that will wrap it up right there. We will go on to the next week, but just to hit on last week. Did do the pick'ems for that game. I ended up going 6-3-3. We had a lot of ties in the last week here.
Yeah, a lot of pushes.
Craig ended up going 5-4-3. So overall, 61-48-5 for your boy. 56-53-5 for Craig as we go into this next week here. We'll start off right now. We talked about, I suppose, kind of trajectory on both these teams is very interesting. But we got Seattle going into Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay still favored, -2.5 points. Sitting at 4-5 against Seattle, 6-3. But who do you got for this one, Craig?
I hope you found this one as easy to pick as I did. Seattle's getting points in this one?
Yes.
Sweet. Seahawks.
Wait a second. And
Oh no!
you will think this is just hater me. And a part
I
of
think
it
this is just hater you already.
and a part of it is. Absolutely. This is kind of one of those games to where the feeling is that Seattle is a much better team. I feel. It's surprising that even on the road, there are going to be plus points in this game. Everything, as far as when you look at it, and if you're looking at it with the right mindset, as far as, how the teams have played, their trajectory, uh, the lack of Tom Brady-ness that you're seeing from Tom Brady, even though he has 10 touchdowns, 1 pick on the season somehow. Like, he's not making the mistakes, but it's still like it's not good offense that you're seeing from this squad. Can't run the ball. Everything kind of points toward pick Seattle. But nothing has really made sense this season. A lot of things haven't made sense, as they do every NFL season. And sometimes you just have to go with your gut. And last week, I also said that Seattle's only going to win. What I say? So I kind of have to stick to my guns on this one. And I did pick Tampa Bay to beat them this next coming week. So I got to stick to it. I got Tampa Bay at home against Seattle.
backing yourself into a corner and then staying in that corner. I
I
respect it.
will hold it down.
I respect the fact that you backed yourself into a corner instead of going, maybe I'll join the. No, you're staying in that corner.
No, and
Uh,
we don't want Seattle to win another game, so
the
loss.
Bucks, the Bucks average 18 points a game.
Yes.
Seattle's weakness, you might remember, is their defense. You somehow think that the Bucks' weakness is less of a weakness than Seattle's weakness.
Well, it's both sides, right? The Bucks can't score, but Seattle can't really do much on defense either. They are the 23rd worst scoring defense in the league too. So they have a garbage defense. Seattle somehow has the fourth best offense,
I was gonna say,
which I am a little suspicious of, but somehow the Bucks have the fifth best defense as far as scoring. So something's gotta give, right? It's kind of like worst and worst versus like best and best aspects.
strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, yeah. You're. I'll stick with the Seahawks. Thanks.
And that's fine. I'll stick with Tampa Bay. On to the next one. We will go into it. We got the Minnesota Vikings. This one's super spicy, actually. Minnesota Vikings coming in at 7-1 into Buffalo, sitting at 6-2. Buffalo, as of right now, getting -3 here at home. The interesting story in this one, Josh Allen, questionable going into this game. Did on the follow through on a very late pass. I want to say the last pass he threw, if not the second to last one. Yeah, I think second to last one because he had a Hail Mary right after that. I was kind of concerned,
Yeah.
like, is he even going to be able to get this Hail Mary off? Because it looked like it hurt him. But yeah, got that situation going forward. Minnesota been looking pretty goddamn good. Buffalo probably one of the favorites until kind of this situation arose, and they did take that loss last week against the Jets. What are you thinking for this one, Greg?
I like Minnesota. Um,
Yeah.
and you might think that's a ad nauseum. Oh, if they play Case Keenum, Minnesota. No, no, no. I like them regardless of who starts at quarterback because I don't think Josh Allen's coming into this game 100% if he plays, which I don't think he will, by the way. I'll throw that out there. I don't think Josh Allen's starting. I've already got Tua in on my fantasy team. I don't think Josh Allen's starting. Um, I think they're going to play this smart. I think the Buffalo Bills realize they're going to the playoffs this year. They're 6-3, 6-2 right now, right? You can afford to take a loss here to get Josh Allen healthy. I think that's a loss you afford in the long run. Um, but Josh Allen's looked a little bit off the last couple games too, so this could be a good rest for him to reset as well, right? I think this is just a good time all around for Josh Allen to maybe sit this game out.
Right.
Case Keenum plays against this Vikings defense. He's not going to be able to do much. I like Case Keenum, but this Vikings defense is really good. And I like the Vikings to win this one. Maybe not running away, but definitely to win it outright.
Yeah, I'll just go right off the bat. I like Minnesota as well. Kind of the same thing that you were saying early on this one is that I think even if Josh Allen is to start for this game, I still kind of like Minnesota, especially with this pretty close point spread here. More or less a pick'em game with that -3. But I think for me it's definitely the idea that this Buffalo Bills team, as I brought up earlier, is really built around having Josh Allen in there as quarterback. I think it makes it a very easy pick, basically. If he is dinged up, if he's not 100%, if they have to play a backup quarterback, you could almost throw it completely away. Like there's that's going to be an L, honestly, as far as I'm concerned for this Buffalo Bills team. Not that they don't have an absolute fantastic defense that has been showing it like through and through, but they can only do so much short thing. It's if your offense isn't getting at least a little bit done for you, how long is the defense going to be able to hold? Gets Minnesota. This was a rough time for it to happen. Honestly, just because you're probably just defaulting a loss at this point. You have Cleveland and Detroit coming up for you as your next two games for Buffalo. So within these 3 weeks, if that's all it takes, you're really hoping for that. Because then you have the stretch.
Yeah,
You got the Pats, Jets, Dolphins, 3 games right there from the beginning of December into the middle of December there. So you're gonna want it back to be able to close out the division in that regard. Because at this point you now have the Jets and Dolphins kind of nipping at your heels
yeah,
as far as your win loss record is concerned. But yeah, I like Minnesota. You have the ability for Dalvin Cook to go back off this game, no
yeah.
problem. We already talked about the weapons that Kirk's been able to start to utilize. I'm always cautious of Kirk Cousins as far as what's the ceiling for this guy, but right now there's so much working around him that uh, I don't think you could really doubt them at the same time. So yeah, give me Minnesota on that one.
Yeah. Yep. Everything you said there. I think it's just smart to maybe look at your schedule ahead and go, Josh, we're like, even if you're like 90% sure he's good, you don't chance it.
Yeah.
You just don't. Looking at the schedule ahead, it's not worth it.
Let's go into the NFC North for our next game. Detroit going into Chicago, 2-6 versus a 3-6 team right here. Chicago getting -2.5 here at home. We've kind of brought up our thoughts on the Justin Fields adaptation that this offense has had, the potential that the Bears have as far as still within some sort of playoff race here. But what are you thinking? Actually, Detroit coming off of one of their few wins of the year, off of the NFC North, Green Bay Packers as well. Bears kind of getting screwed there, coming off a tough loss against Miami. What are you thinking?
Okay. So I'll just throw out my pick really quick because I got a question for you after it. I think the
Absolutely.
Bears are going to win this. I think the
Yeah,
Bears are going to win.
got it.
I had two bets in mind for this week. Last week you threw it out. I'm going to take it this week.
Okay.
I had one for this game or one for Cleveland versus Miami. Which one do you want?
Let's see. Cleveland. Leave it to the Cleveland Miami one.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll
The
do
one I
that.
had for this game was both Amon-Ra St. Brown and brother Equanimous St. Brown will score a touchdown in this game.
Oh wow, spicy. Okay. All right. The St. Browns. I like that though. That was pretty good. That's a stretch, but yeah. All right. Um, but yeah, you got Chicago in this one.
I got Chicago.
Perfect. All right. We'll keep it moving then. Into oh my god, Denver going into Tennessee. The 3-5 Denver Broncos against the 5-3 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee getting -2.5 at home. I'll tell you right out, -2.5. Very surprised by that one. I suppose Denver coming off of. I mean, they got 3 wins, I guess, and yeah, Tennessee only pulling together 5 wins themselves. But I have no reason to think that Tennessee shouldn't take this one handily at home. So give me the Titans.
Uh, I think what it is Denver coming off of a win. Um,
Tannehill, right? Question mark.
Tannehill still might not be playing.
Right.
Is that a definitely not playing? It is a might not be playing. Um, I don't think it matters. I also like the Titans. I
Okay.
think Derek I think Derrick Henry might go for 200 in this one, to be honest with you. Like this Broncos team is just so poorly coached and managed. It's just I have no reason to believe that they'll go up against a franchise that actually has done a good job of managing talent and beat them. So
It's like with Denver, I feel like there is a something needs to be changed basically, and you can't do it with Russell at this point, right? You you've invested too much. You basically mortgaged off your draft capital at this point. So it's got to be Nate Hackett. I don't see it changing anytime soon for the positive. So it's like the writing's on the wall. It's just like when are you gonna finally pull the plug? Just a matter of time. So yeah, definitely feeling Tennessee for this one. I don't see any reason. Yeah, whether you have Willis back there or Tannehill. Obviously, I feel a little bit better with Tannehill back there. That's almost a guarantee if you have Tannehill back there. But I think Willis will do fine. Um, More reps for the guy too makes it very interesting. Uh, no reason that I couldn't see, like you said, with not exactly gadget offense that they're running, but adding some interesting option wrinkles, that sort of thing. Having somebody that has some wheels, keeping the defense on their toes. It doesn't have to be through the pass versus run game. If you could shift run, coverages and schemes well enough, you could make kind of these option run offenses work as well. Um, I think that's a great thing for Tennessee to do. Let's keep it going. Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 3-6, going into Kansas City to face off against the 6-2 Chiefs. Chiefs getting -9.5 here at home. Um, One of the biggest spreads, not quite the biggest spread of the weekend, but for good reason. Chiefs have been looking good when they're able to turn it on. Sometimes not able to do so. Jacksonville coming off a nice little comeback from behind victory against the Raiders after losing quite a few games there. So definitely a little bit more of an interesting. I would say when you have this one on the schedule before the season, you think this one's going to be kind of a throwaway. But Jacksonville can make this kind of an interesting going forward, even despite the spread. You don't believe so, though. I see.
Nope.
So
Nope.
figure you got the
Uh,
Chiefs.
yeah, Jacksonville crumbles when they don't play teams who are completely inept. KC is not completely inept. They will win this running away. I know that Jacksonville
Yeah,
has managed to peg a few teams close this year that might stand like they haven't lost by this margin this year.
right.
That might stand out, especially that Philadelphia loss. But that was when they were feeling really good about themselves. The other teams that they have played that they haven't lost to by this spread is Houston, Indianapolis, the Giants, and Denver.
Right.
It's not like they've been playing the stiffest of competition to get to 3-6.
Yeah.
KC is going to rip them apart.
Yeah, I have KC as well. It's something that I think this is a very good line for this game. I will say that. Like,
Yes.
uh, this puts it right at that limit because I can
Mhm.
see this being a touchdown win, and Jacksonville is able to cover that. Um, and yeah, Jacksonville has been able to keep this a lot of their games, every game basically within single possessions.
Yeah.
Um, by the end of it. KC, on the other hand, has played some close games against competition that you wouldn't expect otherwise, like a Raiders team that they barely beat 30-29, like a
Raiders always play them close, though.
like a Tampa Bay team that they probably should have stomped, won by 10, which is more than this limit. But like I even feel like Tampa Bay right there on that same wavelength with Jacksonville. A couple Florida teams there. Um, but yeah, I gotta lean Casey on this one just for the fact that we know what this offense could do when it's really clicking. It seems like it's going to be something that's very possible for them, and I believe, if I'm not uh, completely wrong, I know Jacksonville's had. I mean, yeah, we've talked about the Shaquille Griffin one injury. I could have swore they had something that potentially popped up recently, but I'm not seeing it on the IR list or the injury list. But yeah, I generally feel good about KC being able to make this a 10-point or greater win against Jacksonville.
Yeah, and it does look like the only player of note KC's missing coming into this game is McCole Hardman, which is a loss, but again, they have more than enough receivers to cover that loss, right? Like
Yeah.
market like Valdez Scantling had one catch last game. If you have to up his production a little bit, that's not a huge deal, right?
Think so. And let's keep it going into the next one here. We got the Cleveland Browns, 3-5, going into Miami to face off against the Dolphins, sitting at 6-3. Dolphins getting -3.5 here at home. Um, we've been able to see a bit of a nice little pop off back from Tua on this one. But the Browns, I believe, coming off of they had the bye week last week, came off a nice win against Seattle before that, or Seattle, Cincinnati before that. Um, Dolphins able to get kind of back into the groove after taking a string of losses there. Some easy wins, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago for them, but able to get back a bit in the groove there of winning culture. For myself, give the line. I really don't think Cleveland, Jacoby Brissett has been doing pretty well by him, but uh, definitely I don't feel like has enough there. I like how Tua obviously uh, has been back into it since the injury, since all the concussion stuff. And yeah, you now have the Niners 1-2 of Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert as far as your backfield for the Dolphins. So I like the Dolphins on this one.
Okay. So, start with the pick. I hate this line for
Right.
one, but I will also take the Dolphins. I think they win by one score, but I think it's closer to a touchdown than it is a field goal.
Yeah.
More importantly, Tap, put up or shut up time. This season, Nick Chubb's season high in rushing yards is 141 yards. Tap, I pause to you that not only will Nick Chubb beat 141 yards this year, he will rush for over 175 against this Dolphins defense.
Wow.
I
175, huh? Okay.
I think this Dolphins defense showed a lot of vulnerability to the run, especially when put with a quarterback who has a little bit of mobility. Now, obviously, Brissett is not uh, Justin Fields, but he's not stationary either. I think Nick Chubb goes off in this game. I got him over 175 yards. I'm throwing down the five gifties on it.
Oh boy. Okay. 175 yards. I still owe you for Stephon Diggs, so we'll have to make sure I've noted that. But um, 175 for Nick Chubb.
I thought about, so I will say, I initially thought about saying he will run for the most yards any running back has run for this year.
Damn.
Then I remembered Derrick Henry had that 219-yard game against Houston. I don't think he's
Just
quite
a little
doing
bit.
that,
Yeah.
but he's over 175. He will be the second highest running back total this year.
Okay. Well, there we go. Got it marked down. Five gifties for that. I like it.
Now that I've bet on him, he's about to go like 16 for 40.
I mean, they'll need him. They'll absolutely need him
That's my
for this
thought, is
game. So yeah,
they're gonna want to stay in this game by just pounding the rock down their throat. Right? Like I could literally see Brissett throwing this ball like Ryan Tannehill numbers, 10 of 17 kind of a thing where Nick Chubb runs 30 for 180, right?
I can see it. I can see it. Honestly, something close within the range, but 175 is pretty astronomical. So
I
yeah, I'll
wanted to make
definitely
it a
take the other side
spicy
of that.
number, right?
I'll take the other side of that for sure. But yeah,
Like the over 141 isn't quite spicy enough. I feel like that's
that's
very
pretty good.
manageable.
That's pretty good. But yeah,
But I was like, no, 175, I believe he can actually do that.
all right. I'd be interested if you make this interesting, because this was a pretty immediate pick for me. Let's go on to the next one. Houston Texans going into New York to face off against the Giants. Texans coming in at 1-6-1 on the season. Giants coming in at 6-2. Giants getting -4.5 at home. Who you got?
Right. This line's not nearly enough.
Right.
Not nearly enough. What do the Giants do best? They let other teams shoot themselves in the foot, and they capitalize on it. No team shoots themselves in the foot like the Texans shoot themselves in the foot. It's not going to be like a 40-point win or anything like that, but the Giants will win comfortably by 2 scores.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any reason to believe that the Giants won't just run the ball down their throats, basically. You got some injured players. Malik Collins, questionable for this game. Uh, Hewitt out as far as linebacker. Reeves may have been questionable. Um, so yeah, some hurt defensive players. IR for a defensive back for them as well. But yeah, in general, it's like this Giants team is built to. I feel like they'll obviously compete and play and do well against good teams. But those teams that don't make the mistakes like this Giants team do, they are really built to beat the bad teams,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because
Oh
they're
yeah.
the ones that are going to make those mistakes. So yeah, absolutely. I think Giants easily by more than 4.5 on this one. This one was a pretty quick pick from
I didn't
myself.
even look at anything beyond the line. I didn't need stats or anything like that. I saw 4.5. I was like, there's no way Houston keeps it within a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
Respect it. Let's keep it going then into the next one. This one this was a gut pick for myself as well. Tricky one though. New Orleans going into Pittsburgh. New Orleans sitting at 3-6. Pittsburgh at 2-6. Pittsburgh getting +1.5 here at home against the Saints. We're talking about a couple teams coming off of some losses in which they only scored 13 points themselves. Saints, though, it's been a up and down, to say the least, season for them. Games in which they're able to shut out a team like the Raiders and then give up 42 points against Arizona. It's been interesting, to say the least, for the Saints team. Steelers, they're just going to be going the way of this team was already rough from the start, I feel. We kind of knew they're going to take some losses, and now they just don't really have the support around, poor old Kenny Pickett back there. So coming off a bye, that'll be helpful for them, but I'm not too sure about this one for them myself. What do you think?
I got the Steelers.
Steelers. Nice.
Um, Honestly, this one was a tough one. I was looking for anything that gave me reason to pick one team. And then I saw that TJ Watt is back this week. That'll do it for me.
Okay.
I could honestly see it go. These are both kind of middling teams who border on shit. So give me TJ Watt.
Yeah, I went Steelers myself as much as I wasn't certain of them. I think for New Orleans right now, it's like I think you got some good, decent play out of Andy Dalton, and now that you're having to stick with the guy, it's it's starting to suck. Basically, like this team isn't going to be able to move the ball at the same clip they've been doing. This is actually the sixth best offense as far as yards per game in the league. Um, I don't see that continuing with a guy like Andy Dalton. I think with the Steelers, it's been a lot of things bad. If they have one thing that's going for them that could be good, is that they have at least a opportunistic secondary as far as their pass coverage is concerned. And bringing a guy like TJ Watt back is only going to help that
Yeah.
stuff out. So I got Pittsburgh being able to take the win on this game. So I like them with the point advantage, but I like them to win outright myself.
Also, as an aside, we often talk about how kicker is the fucking most unfair position in the sport. Um, Chris Boswell's on the IR, so the Pittsburgh Steelers signed Matthew Wright off of Kansas City's practice squad. Now, if you watched the bad Jacksonville team from last season and a couple of games earlier this season of the Chiefs, you know of Matthew Wright. Obviously, not a lot of people have. Matthew Wright in his career, this is a guy who has been on 6 different practice squads already in his career. Is 28 of 32 with his long being 59 yards. I don't know how this dude hasn't stuck on somewhere. That's very good. um so yeah, I was a bit worried when I saw Boswell went down, and then I saw they signed Matthew Wright, and I was like, oh, okay. Kicking game should be okay.
Yeah, I think, uh, yeah, kickers. It's a. I think some like once you get established to a certain point, like you'll stick around
Yeah,
because you're a name, sort of
Chris
thing.
Boswell.
But yeah, there's definitely like there's those young guys that like they'll be great for like a good year and a half or so, and then as soon as they have the streak of like three missed kicks in a row, fucking gone. It's like holy shit, this guy was good, right?
Crazy. He's never really had that. He played one full season in the league, went 21 of 24 with the Jaguars. Only had one game where he missed multiple kicks, and he went 2 of 4 in that game. Missed one kick the rest of the season. Nobody signed him. Ends up on the Chiefs practice squad. Um, Chiefs kicker there gets hurt, whose name I'm blanking on. I feel bad because he's very good.
Bunker.
Uh, Thank you. Butker gets hurt. He comes in, plays one game, goes 3 of 4, sets the Chiefs record for longest field goal in their history. Back down to the practice squad, son. Butker's back.
Right.
Nobody picked him up until right now. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. So is life of a kicker in the NFL. It is pretty
Amen.
cutthroat out there as much at any position. Um, and yeah, one team that did cut their kicker. We'll go right into that. Indianapolis Colts going into Las Vegas to face off against the Raiders. Colts coming at 3-5-1. Raiders at 2-6. Raiders getting -4.5 here at home against the Colts. Um, Sam Ellinger still back there, I believe, for the Colts. New head coach Jeff Saturday on the sideline for the Colts. But this Raiders team's been led by good old McDaniels into the goddamn ground. So, who do you got for this one, Craig?
I wish I knew with certain confidence who I had in this one. The question is, who do you trust more? The guy who's never coached at any significant level, so will probably be inept at it,
Right.
or the guy who we know is inept at coaching. It's oh man. Um, I will take the Colts because I feel like whoever wins this game will win by three or less. Um, this has all the this reeks of 9-7.
Damn. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but yeah, no, it's a both these teams actually right in the week of this game, both really getting hit by the injury bug.
Yeah.
You have for the Colts, Shaq Leonard going back on the IR. Really
Yep.
unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
They just got that guy back. Um, for the Raiders, we brought up Hunter Renfro earlier. He's going to be on the IR for at least 4 weeks. Darren Waller back on the IR after trying to come back for a little bit of time there. Never was effective for that like
No.
week and a half or whatever you played basically.
Yeah.
This Raiders team had the ability to take a win against Jacksonville last week. Couldn't get that done with their offense looking great for about a quarter and a half there, and then it just completely fell apart for them. I have no reason to really believe in this Raiders team, honestly. So, and I not much reason to believe in the Colts either, but there's at least some uncertain variables there, kind of what you brought up. We don't know what we're gonna get with a Jeff Saturday coached squad.
Yeah.
Sam Ellinger, we'll see how he develops. Kind of getting thrown in the goddamn fire here, but
Oh
I
God.
like it better than what the Raiders have been doing with
Yeah.
known quantities. So I like the Colts as well.
That being said, I also have the Raiders sad. I believe I saw the over under for sacks for the Raiders is like 5.5 over.
Pound the over. Oh boy,
Um,
9 sacks
that
last game. Yes,
that Colts offensive line couldn't stop a cold, and now they're supposed to stop Chandler Jones and Max
true,
Crosby, and nope.
true. Um, yeah, let's keep moving here into the NFC. What the Dallas Cowboys coming in at 6-2 against the Green Bay Packers, sitting at 3-6. Green Bay getting +4 here at home. Um, we've already kind of gone into the failures of the Packers. For the Cowboys here, we got a an out Anthony Barr. Zeke Elliott gonna be, I imagine, out. He's questionable with a knee. I don't see any reason why you'd bring him back.
Why would you give Mike McCarthy the chance to play him anymore? Don't do it.
Yeah. Dallas, their last game before their bye against Chicago, stomped them 49-29. To me, you're not getting a better team out of the Packers than you are the Bears. No reason to think that the Cowboys couldn't win this by 20. So give me Dallas on this one for damn sure.
Yeah, I understand why the lines kept relatively close. The fear of obviously a Green Bay winner morning or afternoon in this case, I suppose. Um, it's going to be a little bit chilly,
Right.
probably leads to lower scoring. I don't care. Dallas wins this easily. Rodgers has they've got to hand the ball off more. They've just got to let Jones and Dillon run the ball. The more you give them the ball, the better they have run, right? When it's a stop-start running game, nobody can run like that, right? This isn't even a case where I'm saying like he's got to be Kenneth Walker, where it's like you get him 30 touches and that's where he's gonna go off. You don't even need that. It just can't be this run the ball once a drive thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe trying to kill out some clock, you'll run it 3 times in one drive. It can't be that. You've got to commit to running the ball. You have two good running, not one. You have two good running backs. You have to use them because you don't really have a good quarterback anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's such a shame. It's just like you just know there is talent there in the Green Bay backfield, and
Yep.
it's just not seen.
Yep.
We know it. We know Aaron Jones what he can do. AJ Dillon, like that's a guy I want as my second back for a lot of
Oh,
teams. I think so.
absolutely. One of the best power back. I need 3 yards in the trenches. Give it to AJ Dillon. He's getting you that yardage, right? Like he's one of the best in the league at being that guy,
Right.
right? You combine that with Aaron Jones, who can break off 40 yards on a run whenever, right? But they're so out of the game whenever they get the ball because it's so few and far between. Because Packers are throwing the ball 43, 44, 45 times a game. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing well enough for you to justify doing that.
Yeah.
If they can get the run involved, cold winter's evening in Green Bay, I understand why the line is saying why the bettors are a little bit scared to pump this thing, but this should be Dallas's game, even with Mike McCarthy coaching, even if he has Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield to fuck up his backfield plans again.
Yeah. I think Dallas easy on this one.
Yeah.
Um, let's go into the next one. A NFC West matchup. Arizona Cardinals going into the Rams. Going into the Rams. Um, Rams at -3 here at home. Both 3-win teams on the year. You know, least to say disappointment for both teams here.
Yeah.
Um,
Who'd have thought this would have been a basement dweller game?
exactly. Both basically trying to not to be the last team in the NFC West based on this game. Um, myself, this one took me a little bit because honestly, yeah, it's kind of tough. Like, who's just not
Yeah.
going to play as bad as they have? Um, we've been able to see at least some offensive production out of this Cardinal squad. A very injured Rams team still. So I got the Cardinals on this one, oddly enough. Even being on the road, as yeah, as as bad they've been, I feel like they will handle it against the Rams.
This is we've been too similar recently. I feel like we have to differ here. I got the Rams. Um,
Eh,
namely because of how badly beat up the Cardinals' offensive line is. Their entire interior of their offensive line is out injured.
yeah,
The guy lining up on the other side of that interior of the offensive line is pretty fucking good.
right.
Uh, Aaron Donald's getting at least 3 sacks in this game on Kyler Murray, I think. I think uh
Yeah, it's kind of the thing. Like they're both beat the shit on him,
yeah,
so it's really like yeah, who's just gonna do a little bit better? It's tough to say.
I'm just gonna pick Aaron. Like so my reasoning with TJ Watt being very good, kind of my reasoning here. Aaron Donald is very good at football. He will get many sack. Rams win. I don't know.
There you go.
Your guess is as good as mine. Both these teams stink.
Good to hear. Let's keep it going then. We got the LA Chargers going in to Santa Clara into San Francisco to face off against the Niners. Chargers sitting at 5-3, Niners at 4-4. This is your Sunday night football game. Niners getting -7.5 or 7 straight up at home. Um, I guess interesting news coming to this. We had the surprise retirement, I believe, of was it Jerry Tillery? Yeah,
Yeah, Tillery.
Tillery, former first round pick for the Chargers. Kind of a surprising one there. Just kind of middle of the season team that honestly, yeah, they're 5-3. They are a winning team right now. It's been I would say a little disappointing. They are winners of 4 of their last 5 as well. Are the Chargers? Niners. It feels like after the bye here, a lot of injury injured players coming back, I will bring up quickly. Um, really, really disappointing and sad. Jason Verrett for the 49ers cornerback. First practice back after coming back from a torn ACL. Literally tear, I believe, his other ACL
Yeah,
in the
the ACL
practice.
on the other knee.
Just fucking
As
brutal because like he's now I think he's
no,
over 30.
It was the Achilles. It was the Achilles on the
The
other
Achilles.
leg.
Okay, Achilles.
Yeah.
Um, just yeah, just super fucking unfortunate. Absolutely talented guy. Easily your second quarterback if he was able to be healthy on this team. Not going to be able to do that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, at this point, amount of recovery, that sort of thing, it just realistically, is he going to make it back onto a team? It's going to be about 32 years old at that point, 31, 32. It's just really unfortunate based on yeah, where he could have fit into this Niners squad and how dominant it could have been. Yeah, unfortunate side from the Homer side of me. That being said, we're about to see the full kind of offensive side of this team potentially for the Niners. You're talking about Debo coming back. You're going to have a CMC that's fully kind of acclimated. Eli Mitchell will not be, I think, coming back in really full force coming off the injured reserve, but only a matter of time for that. You got some offensive linemen like Colton McKivitz. Um, yeah, definitely a lot of potential on the board there. Chargers, as good as as good as they have been to get at least the 5-3, they've been disappointing as well. Um, and there's a reason why the Niners are -7 on this one. Very surprising to actually see it that big of a spread. But of course, I'm taking the Niners. So
I hate this spread because the Niners will win this game. That I don't have a question on.
running games
7.
too. Running game
Yeah,
dichotomy on that one is crazy.
yeah, I'm not like I do very much
It's
believe
tough.
the Niners win this game.
7 points is rough
7 points is a lot
for a
for
winning Chargers team. They're
for
five
a
and three.
against a 5-3 team. That is 3-1 on the road, by the way. They much prefer playing away from home than they do at home.
Most LX teams do. Yeah.
I'm still gonna go with the Niners to cover the spread.
Let's go. Let's
I
go. Yeah.
It feels like a bit much. Like it feels like we're right on the borderline of like the Chargers aren't gonna get skunked in this game. I don't think. I think they'll keep it relatively close. I just like what they got with Christian McCaffrey going on, right? And you add Eli Mitchell back to that, and thanks to having Christian McCaffrey, you can work back in Mitchell a little bit slowly, right? You can work him in on plays where it's comfortable. He doesn't have to
Right.
be in those short yardage situations, taking the big hits. I think it just works out for them.
Yeah.
I like the Niners here.
There we go. I do too. Agreed. And let's take it down to the final one. The bottom and the top of the NFC East facing off.
Kind of unfair to one of these teams. They're still a
Was-
pretty decent team.
Washington Commanders going into Philly to face off against the Eagles. Eagles undefeated at 8-0. Washington coming at 4-5. Philly getting -11 here at home. Who you got, Craig?
I got the commies to cover. The Eagles will win, but I think a lot of this 11-point spread hinges on that 24-8 win they had earlier this season.
Right.
This commies team is not that team. The defense has gotten wildly better in the last few weeks. Taylor Heineke is a much better person to lead this offense than Carson Wentz was. The Eagles will win, and you know, though it's not going to be double digits, it's not going to be one of those games that's like, oh, it could go either way right down to the wire, but it's going to be 8, 9 points kind of thing, similar
Yep.
to the spread they had against the um who was it they beat 29-21 a few weeks back, the Jaguars. Similar to the Jaguars line, where the Jaguars were coming in feeling pretty good about themselves after winning a couple in a row, and the Eagles outplayed them and were better. Jaguars were able to keep that line respectable. I think something similar here. The Commanders' defense does a good enough job to keep the Eagles within double digits.
I so my feeling on this is that Washington is actually a good team for
Yes.
sure. I don't think there's anything that you could crazy debate about that. Like, or at least right there in the average to be a good team at times.
Given the
Could be a
median of
bad
the
team at times.
NFL this year, where there is a
Yeah,
lot of very bad teams,
yeah.
they are above that level.
They they're like right in the middle for me, and then they have the ability to play very well, and then they have the
Yeah.
ability to drop off. It's like
Yeah.
they're middle grounds right there though. Philly right now to me is like they could play that game to where it's actually a little closer than you'd like against bad teams. Um, but they've also shown the ability to actually
Yeah.
like blow out or more or less just really soundly defeat good teams as well. Um, although it's only a 9 point win, the way that they were able to handle Dallas at the time that they did, a little bit of a transition time for Dallas, given as far as their quarterback situation was concerned, but still were able to handle business there. Um, the Washington game is the one early on that people will bring up, but they also had a really dominant game against Minnesota early, in which Minnesota that's their only loss on the season was a really bad loss to Philly. 11 points is a really tricky spread for me. I think -10, -11, this is exactly where I think it works out perfectly as far as the spread. I could have gone either way, honestly. Um, and this isn't a knock on Washington. I just think there's a real potential for the Eagles to have a 2 touchdown win on this game. Not even Washington looking terrible in it, but just Eagles having a little too much for them. So I just kind of went on the other side of it, and I went Eagles to have a little bit better of a game than to have a little bit worse of a game, more or less.
Yeah.
I could easily see this going your way, and this being a touchdown victory for the Eagles. I can see it being a 2 touchdown victory for the Eagles as well. So yeah, kind of tricky on that end, but yeah, I got Philly on that, so we'll split on that one. Um, yeah, at the end of the week. So to go over the picks, if we touch on that real quick. Um, very beginning and very end, we actually split on. So very first game of the week, Seattle, Tampa Bay. That's happening. That's across the water, right? Is that
That is in Germany.
this is the Germany game? Okay, I brought that up a week or two ago. Wasn't sure which one. So this is the Germany game. Very cool. So that'll be like a 6:30 kickoff my time, I believe. Um, Not sure I'll be able to catch that one, but I'll try to catch the end of it at the very least. We're split on that one. I have Tampa Bay. Craig has Seattle on that one. We then go all the way into the late afternoon games on Sunday. Arizona versus the Rams. I have Arizona. Craig has the Rams. And then we go into that Washington versus Philly game. I have Philly. Craig has Washington on that one. Uh, yeah, along with that, we have the 175 yards for Nick Chubb against the Miami Dolphins. Uh, we'll have 5 gifted online for that. And yeah, we'll see what happens as we got the teams on the bye. Uh, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Jets, and the Patriots coming off of that as well. Actually, some interesting aspects with that, as we brought up before. Jamar Chase, guys like that coming off the that bye week for Cincinnati. That'll be interesting to look at toward the future. I think even for the Jets, having maybe another week for a guy like James Robinson to get more in tune with that offense might be a big thing. So we'll see going forward. But that is our picks right there for week 10.
Yep.
And then, yeah, we are we're starting to get into it. Anything you want to touch on as far as some of the other leagues going on right now? We're starting to get into a little bit of the early swing here. NHL, NBA, obviously a lot of college football going on right now. I know you're
Oh
aware of.
boy, is there. Fun fun weekend at the top of the college football rankings. I was talking to Tap about this earlier. Cause yeah, no blog this week, unfortunately. The website's not working. I'm not gonna be able to get them up by the time
Son of a
it
bitch.
goes on tomorrow, so that sucks. But yeah, there's a lot of really interesting games at the top of the card this week. Not the least of which being Alabama and Ole Miss being a fascinating little game of two teams who are very good and will not be anywhere near the playoff picture. Um, Ole Miss, not a surprising thing for them. They usually aren't. Alabama, very different place than where they're used to being in week 11. But yeah, there's right now, Cincinnati's playing ECU in a very fun contest. It's 27-25 Bearcats going late in the fourth there. Um, whenever we get to this point in the season, you're getting close to the end of the season and all of the conferences, it gets easy to hone in on that top 25 in the playoff picture in particular. But it's easy to forget that, like, when you look at teams like Fresno State, San Jose State, who's having a great season in the Mountain West, you look at teams like Troy and Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina and the Sun Belt, right? These games that they're playing, even if Troy's playing Army this week and Coastal Carolina's playing Southern Miss, those games end up being just as important to those programs. You win those conference titles, you get into bigger bowl games. You get into bigger bowl games, you get more eyes on you. That's how you build up recruits, right? That's how you get teams like UCF, who have become a consistent contender in the top 25. Cincinnati, the same thing, who every year they're threatening to push the top of the rankings. They're constantly in and around that top 25. They've been there because they've built up programs based on constantly winning smaller divisions, being in the limelight, being in front of eyes in bigger bowl games. And I think it's easy to forget that because I know everybody looks at bowl season. There's a large populace of the people who look at bowl season and go, why would I want to watch the Quicken Loans Bowl or the Goodyear Quick Lane Bowl or the uh, Gasparilla Bowl, the Camellia Bowl, all these bowl games. There's too many bowls. That is only true if you look at it from the standpoint of the only success in a season is winning the national championship, which is true in professional leagues.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily true in college.
It's
There's a
not
lot to be
realistic.
gained.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. But there's a lot to be gained from teams like Liberty, who have had a few good seasons in a row now. They're 8-1 again this year, knocking on the rankings and looking at another pretty high ranking bowl game against a likely Power Five conference team who didn't quite make the playoff, right? Teams like Troy, who are all of a sudden a team who's got like the best defense in the nation and are threatening to win the Sun Belt and potentially get into a game against, say, like a Syracuse or a Purdue, right? These games really matter in that middle section
Yeah.
So I would say to somebody who maybe doesn't watch college football as much, but you're bored on Saturday, you're looking for a game to watch. Maybe you got a Tulane and UCF game on, and you go, not really important. Eh, so fast. These games tend to make airwaves because they are important in their conference, right? They play a certain role to play going forward into conference title games. So, if you're looking for something to watch and you see one of those, maybe turn it on in the background, keep an eye on it. You might catch a fun game. UCF in particular this year, I mentioned them a lot in this, have been a super fun team to watch. Have only lost to the best of the best. I think their losses this year are like LSU, and I think they have a conference loss, but I can't remember who to. Um, so yeah, you know, college football is very different with the transfer portal now. These big five-star recruits who flame out places move quick. And because of that, you end up with really talented players who just didn't fit in a system going to smaller teams and becoming really good players again. That's what's happened
Yeah.
at Kansas this year. Jaden Daniels leaving USC because it didn't quite work out there. All of a sudden has talked himself into like a top 3 rounds draft pick in this upcoming draft just because he's having an unbelievable season at Kansas,
Yeah.
right? These are the kind of things that have been happening more and more recently. A lot of people worried that the transfer portal was going to be really bad for college football and just continue to siphon players to power conferences. What's actually happened is you have a lot of talented players that just don't fit in systems going to weaker schools and building them up a little bit more. And it's caused a nice little middle ground in the NCAA that I think is very interesting at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. It's I think the worry was exactly what you pointed out, and it's kind of developed into almost the opposite, to
Yeah.
where the talent that was perhaps highly recruited and sought after, and that wouldn't have looked at maybe in some smaller colleges, all of a sudden is able to seek out opportunity, and it almost downfills. A
Yeah.
weird trickle down that actually somehow works. It's not typical of trickle down effects, but yeah, it's working in the transfer portal. So yeah, great point on that. And yeah, I mean we're coming down to the nitty gritty here as far as college football is concerned, right? It's coming right down to it. So
4 weeks to go.
yeah,
4 weeks to go until conference
some
championships and
fun
bowl
games.
season.
Some
And
fun
boy,
games
oh
to check
boy, am
out.
I not looking forward to writing the bowl season blog.
Yeah.
That's going to be 68 games that I have to write about.
So yeah, be able to. We will be able to check that out further. Unfortunately, Craig is not able to get that up this week, but that's going to be at the sportscliches.ca/blog website. You
Look
go
for an
check
NHL
that
one
out.
out tomorrow, too.
Hockey as well, and yeah, I'm sure we'll cover all sorts of sports. At least Craig will through that one. But yeah, I think that will wrap it up here for the Sports Cliches podcast. Sports Cliches, you're watching it right now every Friday. Typically, we started a little earlier today. Typically, we'll try to get this in around 6 p.m. Pacific time. That'll be on the twitch.tv/tapatioj channel. That is TAPATIOJ. You catch us there live, or you can check us out on the weekend after we get this thing uploaded, whenever I decided to send it over to Craig, over on the Sports Cliches YouTube channel. Just look us up on YouTube there. We should hopefully be able to get maybe the custom URL for that soon enough.
Working on it. I'm working on it.
Yes. But until then, I think that'll do it for us covering the world of the NFL, some of our other stuff, and we will be back next week to see how we did on Sports Cliches. I'm Jay. That's Craig. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great weekend. Peace out, y'all.
Deuces.
Peace.